Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And tonight, dramatic pause. We're talking Mr. Banks.
Yeah!
Yeah, Dragon, we've kind of been phasing out the individual podcast titles for a more unified form. But I gotta tell you, like, Talking Mr. Banks, that's like, it was done in like the first year of the channel, 2013, to hype up Saving Mr. Banks, of course. It's a mainstay, man. I don't think it's going anywhere. Anyways, so Dragon, we're here to talk about Christopher Robin, the new 30 years later Disney live action sequel remake thing, directed by Mark Forster, the director of Finding Neverland, one of my favorite movies from the year that came out, Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dragon, I think we're here to answer one question and one question only. Do you want to know what that question is?
Yes, I do.
Is this a film that makes you want to think, or is it a film of very little brains? You like that?
Not bad.
All right. So of course, like any spoiler cast, just warning everyone right now. Now, granted, it's Christopher Robin. This isn't a very complex story. It's Winnie the Pooh. You're not going to have any like earth-shattering revelations or anything like that. But granted, there's special moments in this movie that I think you might want to wait for to see for yourself for sure if you really have a fondness and an interest in this movie, especially if you're a big Winnie the Pooh fan. I would definitely recommend checking out this movie before watching the spoiler cast. But regardless, full spoilers ahead for however much you consider a movie like this to be spoiler filled. So, Dragon, let's start out with it. Let's go into our expectations going in and thoughts coming out. I will start us off. So, I've actually seen this movie twice.
Lucky dog.
Yeah, so I saw it once on Friday, and I got to admit, Dragon, the first sign where I was a little bit skeptical about this movie was the fact that the review embargo lifted the day it came out. And I was like, "Yeah, boy," kind of like a Simpson, like, "Yeah," like tug on the collar sort of thing.
Of course.
And I was really excited for this movie. Like, it was kind of becoming a running joke how stoked we were for this movie, because I got to say, this movie had I don't want to say it had an awesome ad campaign, but it had a really, really good teaser trailer. It had a damn good teaser trailer that really sold you on the movie. It really sold you on all you need to know about the movie. And of course, we'll get into it, but unfortunately, the main trailer that I kind of started to see over and over again as I went to movies, that gave away a little too much, as per usual. And Dragon, I gotta say, I'm kind of like starting to get sick of this whole pattern, and maybe starting to get onto Monkey's side of wanting to avoid trailers altogether with these sorts of things. But I digress. I walked out of the first screening of this movie a little bit mixed. I definitely thought that the voice acting was a highlight. Of course, we have Brad Garrett as Eeyore, who was honestly, Dragon, I think as good as oh my god, this is embarrassing. Wow, Jim Cummings. For some reason, I wanted to say Jim Sterling. For some reason, who is Jim Sterling? Dragon, do you?
Uh,
Oh, I'm thinking of Sterling Holloway. So I got Jim Cummings and Sterling Holloway mixed up. Wow, that was
oh my
embarrassing.
god, you're melding iconic voice
Yes,
actors.
I'm building iconic Winnie the Poohs right now. That's exactly what I'm doing. So I'm
Double
sorry, I
Pooh
digress.
horns.
So Jim Cummings and Brad Garrett are kind of the MVPs of this movie, and Ewan McGregor. Like, it's kind of like a three-way street with this. So of course we got to give some Tigger love to Jim Cummings, because Tigger is a wonderful addition to this cast. Always everybody loves Tigger. But Dragon, I gotta say, especially on the rewatch, because this was a movie that was so important to me. Winnie the Pooh 2011 is my favorite movie of 2011. It's like that movie like really knocked it out of the park for me. I think it's incredibly underrated. So I've really got a soft spot for these characters and this world and this kind of mythology in a way, if you want to call it a mythology. So Dragon, the second time I saw this movie, Jim Cummings as Winnie the Pooh. Every single line made me well up, and some of them made me freaking cry. I mean, oh my god, Dragon, this movie, I'm not really sure how you feel about it, but it really warrants a rewatch. It really does. It's definitely an imperfect movie, and we'll talk about that. I think kind of like to sum it up, the three biggest flaws I have with it is it's got kind of a cliche story, kind of like the overworked dad has to find, has to find his imagination again, that kind of like we've seen it in the Haunted Mansion and Hook and all kinds of different movies. It's an overdone thing, and we all know exactly how it's going to turn out. Unfortunately, I kind of we got all that kind of spoiled in the trailer already, so we kind of knew that going in. Dragon, I would say another big issue with this thing is the pacing. I just it's not necessarily bad pacing. I just think Act One it really takes a little while to get going. Like there's a certain point in the movie. There's a certain like you can kind of like pinpoint like a pulse. You can pinpoint a pulse in Act One, and once we get that pulse going in Act One, kind of towards the end of Act One, then we're like, oh, okay, this is a ride, man. This is a Winnie the Pooh adventure. But until we get to that point, Dragon, it is kind of a slowly paced, kind of slow burn of a movie. And I definitely think this is a weird kind of enigma of a Disney movie where, not since Saving Mr. Banks, ironically enough, Dragon, not since Saving Mr. Banks, do I think that we've had a Disney movie that's definitely, like, almost objectively aimed more towards adults than kids. Like, I truly think this is an adult Disney movie for all intents and purposes. Like, this is one where, Mark Forrester, he really gets to shine. Like, this is Finding Neverland written all over it, Dragon. And so at the end of the day, because of the Jim Cummings stuff, because I really truly think we've got kind of like a triforce of Ewan McGregor, Brad Garrett, and Jim Cummings in that dual role as Tigger and Winnie the Pooh, and because this fucking movie made me cry, Dragon, my best thesis statement that I can give for this movie is it's definitely not as good as the Muppets, like the 2010 Muppets movie.
That was
But
20. That was 2011.
it might be 2011. I think you're right. I think it's 2011. I'm sorry. I digress. It might not be quite as good as that one. Like, I don't think I'm going to look back quite as fondly as Christopher Robin as I will for that one. But it's in the same vein, Dragon, where it's like, this isn't necessarily a Winnie the Pooh movie, but much in the same way that The Muppets is kind of like a movie about the Muppets and a movie that kind of deconstructs the Muppets. This movie does very much the same thing for Winnie the Pooh, and I appreciate it so much for that. And there's one moment in particular, kind of towards the middle of the movie with Winnie the Pooh, that's Dragon, I'm gonna hype it up. I hope you know what I'm talking about when I give this comparison, but it's essentially Winnie the Pooh's the world may need the Flash,
Oh god.
but I need my Barry Allen.
Oh god.
Do you have any, without giving it away, Dragon, do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
Look, there are a lot of really great Winnie the Pooh line reads in this movie. So
Yeah, but
you forgive me if I'm a little lost on which moment exactly.
All right.
There are a lot of really good moments that I can confuse.
There's definitely an I need my Barry Allen moment in this movie, Dragon. I'll point it out.
All right, you do that. You point that out.
All right, so Dragon, go ahead and give your expectations, thesis statement, all that,
etc. Yes. Okay, so folks, right from the get-go, this is an interesting project, and the initial marketing mainly, I mean the teaser. I'm kind of in the same boat there with Tiki. Basically, the initial marketing, it was something special. It just had that spark of like, because already I was interested in the project, where it's just like the next Disney live-action film, Christopher Robin. Like, wait a minute, why don't we call it Winnie the Pooh? What's going on there? Christopher Robin, what? And then I'm watching, and then I see that teaser and starting to really come into focus. Like, oh my god, this looks amazing. Looks like it's actually going to deliver on the kind of the pseudo kind of plot synopsis of like that plot synopsis. Out of context, it sounds like a horrible idea. It sounds like, oh my god, we're doing Smurfs with Winnie the Pooh. Oh god,
Dragon, it's kind of funny because Monkey has a very similar kind of. like Monkey doesn't like the idea of an adult Christopher Robin Dragon. That's what's kind of he's gonna go see the movie, but he's kind of hesitant about it because of the adult Christopher Robin angle.
Because I mean, like when that was announced, like my initial when just that little just the premise itself is Christopher Robin, and basically like if it's gonna be in live action. And again, I gotta tell you, again, I wasn't connecting all these dots at the point when it was announced, but it was kind of coming, it's kind of forming into the idea was kind of forming in my head that if we're lucky, it could have some resonance like a Saving Mr. Banks. But by the same token, again, like then when that premise comes, like okay, it's kind of Winnie the Pooh in the real world. It's like, wait a minute, I don't know about that. But I mean, I want this to succeed so much. And then that teaser comes out, and that teaser like really selling. It's like, oh my god, things might fall into focus. That this could be very amazing. So the initial marketing seemed to be capturing the magic, and the thing that really got me even more hyped from the film and just kind of really kind of got me even more dialed into it, basically more on the optimistic path, was Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith, of course, he on Hollywood Babylon. Kevin Smith is like a fun mock. He's not really an impressionist, but he does like these lines. Like the only impression Kevin Smith really does fantastically is Bane. He is an excellent Bane from Dark Knight Rises.
Oh yeah.
And does like a few kind of one like he does Philip Seymour Hoffman from Mission Impossible. He does and Winnie the Pooh. And Winnie the Pooh, he was like, oh bother. And the point is, so Kevin Smith, he's very dialed into Winnie the Pooh. He's got like a fondness for it, and of course, like all these new live action Disney films, he's very positive, he's very optimistic when they're kind of announced and they're coming out. And specifically Winnie the Pooh, again, based on his kind of his Hollywood Babylon kind of running gag. And he's just been very positive on the movie, very much. I don't know if he's seen it yet. I just know he's been very much looking forward to it in the movie. Of course, take my money. I want to see this. I lived to see this movie after short of Infinity War. He lived to see Infinity War, but it's like second.
Dragon, I'd say, ironically enough, with us, it was kind of like Infinity War, Incredibles 2, and then maybe this movie at a solid number 3. Would you agree?
What do you mean, just period this year so far?
I mean, in terms of like the summer.
Well, I mean, in Deadpool 2, Tiki. So I mean,
yeah. Well, Deadpool 2, I'm gonna give you
Incredibles and Infinity War, absolutely. I'm just saying, I got Deadpool 2 in there. And if we're talking like hype and market, I'd say this is like one of the big.
Oh, you better not tell me that you were looking more forward to Ant-Man and the Wasp. You better not go that far.
Look, if my point is, I think
go that far.
Look, I'll just meet me in the middle here. It's in the top 5, or it's in the top 5.
All right.
In the top 5, let's not play favorites like do an analysis of marketing of films and trailers and such. All right, let's just it's in the top 5. My point is, and then Kevin Smith kind of blew my mind with something that you were much smarter in kind of figuring out than myself here, but I kind of heard it kind of announced to me that was that Kevin Smith basically kind of spelled out in Hollywood Babylon that he's super excited for the movie, and he basically had the realization that I felt kind of stupid, like, why didn't I make that connection? Essentially, it's kind of hooked for the next generation. With a lovely commenter, Kellen O'Rourke, has also pointed out that yes, it was Honest Trailers has also made that connection. It's been kind of getting around there, and yes, it is for any Hook fans. I'm sure this is a real delight for them. I'm sure.
And ironically enough, we did a commentary on Hook not too long ago, and we didn't really connect the dots there either, so we were kind of slow on the uptake to that.
True, and there's also might be points we might have to re-examine Hook for down the line at some point. We may have to do that for semantical reasons. Remember?
Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
That's a thing, folks. There may the points we don't have like a conspiracy to not have a Hook commentary. Just trust me, we might have just for semantical reasons might have to go back and do that one over again. Anyway, so anyway, my point is, so again, Kevin Smith kind of pointed out the Hook thing to me, which is like, oh my god, yeah. And then as Tiki and Australia and everybody's been kind of saying like, yeah, it's 30 years since the original. It's revisiting with the older character. Like, yep, that's amazing. That's getting me even more and more hyped. Like, oh my god, it could be Hook next gen Hook. That could be even more amazing. So when I was at the theater, when I saw it, it drew in a crowd. Here's something that was really refreshing to me. I saw a lot of kids, and we'll get into how that turned out. But one thing that really delayed me, I saw like an older mother and daughter. I believe mother and daughter might have just been like old friend, young friend. I don't know. But the point is, I saw this woman had like a Winnie the Pooh bag, which really captivated me. Like, oh my god, it's bringing all the diehard Pooh fans out of the work. This is the thing that families, mothers and daughters, mothers and sons, like all sorts of variety of people have really gravitated towards, and they've grown up with this. So it's like, yeah, why wouldn't they see this? Of course they would. This
Well,
is
Dragon,
amazing.
I can contest that both times I've seen this movie, it was more adults than kids in the theater.
Yes, and basically, I think overall with the marketing, and there were some issues with the marketing for this film, specifically in how much footage they used in the trailers, not including the teaser. I had an idea of what I was getting with this movie, and I was fine with that, honestly. Just even knowing a large amount of being able to piece together what would happen in this movie.
Yeah, the second trailer didn't exactly make the plot line very subtle.
Exactly. So, on the whole, my grand thesis, my one sentence thesis, I suppose, on all this is, I had an idea what I was getting, and I was fine with that, and I got that. It could have used maybe a bit more mystique in places, like a bit more of that. A little less London plot, a little more mystique. I'm not entirely sure, but it's a fine, warm film, and it's a fine, warm film, and is a sorry, and it is a clever sequel to the original. It's a really, it's a very, honestly, it's like I love that it very much fits the continuity of the original Winnie the Pooh. So you could very much make the distinction that connects to Winnie the Pooh. Many adventures went through the original one from '77. Or at least the compilation of the package films. It's just the Winnie the Pooh movie, I'll remember, folks.
Yeah.
Trust me on that. The point is, I like that it felt like a sequel, but also just kind of a good tribute to the character, like you were kind of hitting on with the Muppets comparison, Tiki. It it met my expectations, and I was pleased with the film. I'd recommend it right off the gate there. So.
All right. So Dragon, do you have any oh, I guess we should kind of talk about our backstory with Pooh a little bit.
Yes.
Now I definitely, Dragon, ironically enough, the new Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, the TV show that Disney did on the Disney Channel, that was my kind of gateway drug into Pooh.
Okay, now remind me, Tiki, because there's one with puppets and there's one with.
Oh God, no! It's not the puppet one. It's not the puppet one.
Okay,
Fuck that. I mean, believe me, I have kind of a fondness for that on a so bad it's good kind of level. But no, it's not the puppet. It's the 2D animated show.
I just want to make sure because there's like a number of kind of these Pooh shows.
I believe it's the show that introduced Gopher, which is why we had that kind of weird conversation with Jacob earlier this week where where I was kind of like waxing fond for Gopher because Gopher was kind of part of my original Winnie the Pooh lineup.
Right.
And I had a bunch of VHS tapes, and I remember each VHS tape was like a fable, like like sharing is caring or hooray for friendship. You know what I mean? And it would kind of like go ahead.
Little fun fact about Gopher, I learned this. Gopher, I don't believe is in the original books, and he is like the only American character in the film. In the original.
Wait, was he in the original the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh?
Yes, yeah, he had like the whistle and everything. He was
okay.
Yeah, he was there. Like Pooh's getting stuck in the hole and everything.
Okay, my bad. Then the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh isn't when introduced him. My bad. Okay. Wow, I got that completely wrong. Still that that old the 80s show is really my kind of entry point to Winnie the Pooh. And I remember the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh actually being like very subdued, and of course that's a movie that I really do look back on with fondness because it's this weird amalgamation of shorts where some of them were done with Walt Disney, some of them were done after Walt Disney died. It's kind of like but all of them like have this real heart and charm to them, and it's kind of like the most it's like the blue meth of Winnie the Pooh, if you will. I don't think that's ever going to be topped when it comes to Winnie the Pooh. It's just the classic upon classic of Winnie the Pooh. And like I said, Dragon, I definitely had a huge appreciation for the 2011 Winnie the Pooh as well. I thought that movie really nailed on the head. The way I put that movie is it's not just a great 2D Disney animated movie. in the modern sense of the word. It's a 2D Disney animated movie that captures the sensibilities of what a 2D Disney animated movie was when Walt was alive and Walt was making movies. That's how I describe that movie. It's got this very laid back pace to it, and it's not really all that concerned with plot as much as it is with songs and music and visuals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's basically all I got. I just, Winnie the Pooh, of course. I feel like it's a character where it's not going to be anyone's like all-time favorite Disney thing unless you're a diehard Winnie the Pooh fan. But I feel like there's very few people who dislike the character on any sort of fundamental level. Maybe if you're like a big Disney theme park enthusiast, you'll dislike the fact that Winnie the Pooh replaced beloved theme park attractions on both coasts with the Country Bears and Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, respectively. But I think that's the only thing anyone has against Winnie the Pooh, Dragon, honestly, is the theme park controversy of it all. I think other than that, Winnie the Pooh is just kind of like he's almost like Mickey Mouse levels of just like this beloved cultural icon.
Right. For me, I was kind of a passing kind of Winnie the Pooh fan. I was kind of like very I knew Winnie the Pooh and I liked it. I was just kind of was never really fully into it. I mean, I'd seen a number of the shows. Just I'd kind of have these run-ins with Winnie the Pooh. It's like, oh, there he is. And it's like basically in like kind of the viewership of Winnie the Pooh. It's like kind of like passing them down the street, like, oh, hi, how's it going, Pooh? And just kind of walking, stepping on by essentially. Because I had seen the VHS. I had the VHS tape of the original film of the Many Adventures. The pack, compilation, Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I had seen a few. I may have seen an episode or two of the show you're talking about, Teague, which I think was like late '80s, early '90s. I think. And then I saw a little bit of the puppet version, not the scary beyond all belief that some people in the comments may be thinking of, but just like the good one with the puppets. It was on Saturday morning, I think. I may have caught a couple episodes of that. But here's the thing: here's the deep. I'm going to go real deep cuts with this here. Here's the one that I really remember. When I think Winnie the Pooh, I keep thinking of this because it was like a theatrical experience. Like I think my only theatrical experience with Winnie the Pooh, but it's just kind of so striking. I've never gone back to it. The Tigger movie.
Yeah, the Tigger movie definitely is. That is a nostalgic favorite for a lot of people, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I'm sure for some diehard Tigger fans, this was like a big kind of a big groundbreaking film. And I just remember it. I love how the film was
It was
sold.
definitely a lot better than Piglet's Big Movie or the Heffalump movie, Dragon. I think that was out of that weird trilogy of theatrically released Disney Toons Winnie the Pooh movies. The Tigger movie was the one where it really got people into it. I remember that movie had a really great marketing campaign, where everything was like all stripes. I think McDonald's had like different variations of Tigger and the Happy Meals or something like that.
I mean,
Anyways.
the thing that always struck me with the Tigger movie, and the thing that always stuck out to me, and again, I've never gone back to revisit it, folks. The closest I've ever come to revisiting is they use a clip of it in The Boys, the Sherman Brothers story. It's about the closest I've been to revisiting it. But no, the Tigger movie, it basically was just, I thought it was such a brilliant idea that if you're going to do a spin-off movie about Tigger, if you're going to have Tigger as your main lead in a Winnie the Pooh film, I love that they took the thing that made Tigger special, the fact that he's the only one this thing was always so boastful and happy about, and we looked at it in a dramatic context, that Tigger's a little lonely. And again, like we kind of have this big dramatic thing of Tigger's going alone in the storm and the wintry storm and everything. You got this Locket, you got a Roo, of course. When I think of Tigger's I always love Tigger's dynamic with Kanga and Roo. Get it, put them together, kangaroo,
But I believe that dynamic really. I mean, I keep in mind, I really have to go back and watch the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. But the Roo and Tigger dynamic was really prominent in that show I was talking about. Like, if it was there in the originals, it was really built upon with that show. That show kind of like really built upon a lot of the Winnie the Pooh fundamentals.
Sure, and that's the thing. I think you're right, but also again, the movie kind of brought that to cinema a little bit, just kind of that dynamic, and also kind of had Roo in a very central role as kind of Tigger's kind of young ward in a way. Again, kind of makes sense. The kangaroos who want to bounce, of course, would kind of be the master of bouncing in the Winnie the Pooh verse being Tigger. So it always kind of made sense. And basically, he was the Robin, the Tigger's Batman, to respect. Anyway, so let's see. Overall, my thoughts on Winnie the Pooh is I feel honestly, I've been thinking about Pooh lately, and I got to with all of this, and it kind of occurred to me, I've kind of always seen it this way. I've never really had a chance. We've never really talked about Winnie the Pooh that much.
No, Dragon, and honestly, I'm kind of like thinking of like in my head right now, like this sounds like a ridiculous concept, but it'd be a really ambitious idea. Like the 100-acre podcast where we talked about 100 Winnie the Pooh related pieces of media.
Well, one, that's very ambitious. Two,
I know I could dig up 100 of them, Dragon. I know I could.
I know you could. I wouldn't put that in writing. Anyway.
I'm just like, this idea just kind of like flashed into my head as we were talking. Anyway,
I feel Pooh kind of got raw treatment, kind of got a raw deal in the grand scheme of kind of the Disney landscape when you really think about it. Pooh is a delightful, is kind of this delightfully innocent character who is kind of outside the Disney players because again he has that deep cut history with kind of the English. Kind of the English book series and such,
Poor A.A. Mine.
Yeah, I looked into that. I unfortunately I did not. I wasn't able to see Goodbye Christopher Robin. I'd seen the clips, and
I haven't seen that one either.
I looked into the story, then I looked into the actual story.
Dragon, I think it's more important that you see Finding Neverland. Honestly,
I did see it.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Well, we have to talk about that, but
sure.
Okay.
Anyway, what was I going to? Oh, yes. So my point is, I haven't looked into that. I saw a little bit of it. I looked into the actual guy and a bit of the film and saw the correlation. Very interesting story there. I'll tell you about later. But my point is, I feel that Pooh kind of got a raw deal, and I'll explain why momentarily. I feel that Pooh. He's not a main Disney player, because again, he has that deep cuts. He's kind of he's almost, this might be a stretch. He's almost kind of like the England's Mickey Mouse, almost like the Mickey Mouse of London almost. And he's like
that, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel that Pooh just kind of in the translation to becoming a Disney property, he just became kind of kid stuff. And that's not a negative way. I feel that Pooh, that's why we don't revisit Pooh as often as we do, or at least in a way that really counts. Like usually whenever Pooh, he re-enters the theaters or we do something with Pooh, it kind of either falls by the wayside or it doesn't get the attention it deserves. Like the 2011 film, as you were saying.
The 2011 one, that was released directly against the last Harry Potter movie.
That's what I'm saying. So I feel
that one I feel like was literally thrown under the bus in a certain way.
Quite possibly, and that's what I'm saying. I feel that Pooh is just like, they want to reach this. I feel this is going to sound like a really bizarre comparison, but I kind of feel like this. See, I feel Winnie the Pooh is a kind of an interesting combination of. It's almost the Winnie the Pooh series, the genesis of Winnie the Pooh is sort of like Jungle Book meets Mary Poppins almost. Because it's the beloved, these book series that are kind of like changed or adapted, and of course very big overseas. With London and Mary Poppins, you have kind of a similar. They're kind of a fusion of those two stories, and how Disney they want to tell those stories, but they also want to change them and they want to alter things that are very different from the book. And I feel there's kind of a weird relationship with those three. I mean, I forget where Roger Kipling hails from, but I don't know. It feels kind of like
Kipling.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's who I meant. Yes, Kipling.
I believe England.
Okay, well, yeah, it's just kind of this weird divide with England and Disney. I don't know what it is. Like we take these books and we have this weird. We kind of almost have like that. We got them in the divorce.
Ironically enough, The Sword in the Stone is another Disney English thing that didn't really work all that well.
Yeah. So again, just honestly, Pooh just feels like marketing fodder sometimes. In that Disney, they want to like make money off the fact that it's a recognizable character, and again, it's something that you can very much market. And of course, Stuffed Bear is your protagonist, and these stuffed characters are your protagonists. You can easily market that and sell that. And again, I feel they're only marketing the children. They're treating them like Disney's treating them like it's the Disney version of Barney, and that's just unfair. And that's the thing. I feel that's what I mean. I hopefully this movie might be able to kind of change some of that, but still, it's like don't get me wrong. Pooh is there are nice products with Pooh. Like I have I have for like Halloween decorations. Like it's called Franken-Tigger. It's Tigger as Frankenstein. It's awesome, and I love it. It's like it's adorable. And my mother, she outside of the Pixar characters, my mother she collected at least the characters she was really into were Stitch and Eeyore. Those are the two characters she really loved out of the Disney characters. And Eeyore, of course, is a very kind of charming and marketable character because everybody loves that kind of is that character you just want to cheer up. And that's the thing. It just our characters never really got the proper limelight they deserved, and all these fleeting attempts and just he's kind of gone unnoticed or it's become infamous with like the online trends of like we find like what's the Stranger Things called again?
The what?
The Winnie the Pooh, the Don't Talk to Strangers thing.
Too smart for strangers.
Right. Too like again. Unfortunately,
you said Stranger Things, Dragon. That really confused me. I was like, wait, Pooh and Stranger Things?
The two. There was this ridiculous special made, Too Smart for Strangers, and it was. Unfortunately, I feel like that's like kind of the internet popular that Winnie the Pooh gets these days, and I just feel like all the good stuff Pooh's kind of fallen by the wayside. We don't look nearly enough back to kind of like that. We take the songs away from Pooh. You don't really see the character that much these days, and that's why this film is kind of refreshing to kind of explore the positive light of kind of the charm of Winnie the Pooh.
This movie absolutely puts the focus back on Winnie the Pooh, the character, Dragon, and that's what I think the main importance of this movie holds.
They were looking at him as a character before looking at him as like, oh, how can we sell this?
Totally.
All right, so with that said.
Okay, do you have any backstory for us on this?
Yes, and of course, folks, if we ever go back to do like a commentary on this, assuming there's not a commentary on this, I don't know what the director is, kind of if he's for commentaries or not, but
I'm pretty sure there was a commentary on Finding Neverland.
Well, we'll see, because usually these Disney live-action films have a track record for never having commentaries.
Oh, Dragon, I have a funny thing about Finding Neverland, if you want to, really quick. A funny aside.
Okay, what do you got real quick?
So Dustin Hoffman was in Finding Neverland.
Yes, he was.
And, famously, Dragon, I think, with the director, he was like, now Dustin was very hesitant to be in a Peter Pan movie. And he was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, you better not have me anywhere near Hook. Like, I don't want to touch Hook.
Right.
All right. Bad form.
But regardless, if we ever do a commentary on Pooh for some reason, that we'll have better facts here. This is just kind of very surface level backstory on this film here. This has been in the works since 2015, from what I could find. It's been in the works since 2015. As part of the ever-growing live-action, remake trend of Disney. But of course, this one was a little bit different. Again, kind of focused on like bringing a character to the real world and such. The last attempt with Winnie the Pooh, I believe to date, was Winnie the Pooh 2011, I think. Of course, went up against Harry.
That was the last time we did anything major with him. I mean, there might have been a TV, like a Playhouse Disney thing. That's probably the.
Well, yeah, I mean cinematically.
Yeah.
But, of course, not counting Goodbye Christopher Robin either, but because that was 2017. That was literally a year before this. So,
Dragon. Apparently, Brad Jones went to the movie theater and there was a poster for Goodbye Christopher Robin instead of this movie.
I know, I heard about that.
You heard about that?
So of course, last time Winnie the Pooh went to theaters in a substantial way, went up against Harry Potter, which was kind of doomed for failure, unfortunately.
And this time it's going against Mission Impossible, but in its second weekend, so,
Yeah, it's, again, just Winnie the Pooh can't catch a break in terms of who it's going up against. I don't know what the deal is there. And, of course, 77, I'm thinking Star Wars, way back when. They say, kids, what do you want to watch, Star Wars or Winnie the Pooh? Winnie the Pooh just cannot catch a break historically. Anyway, so Mark Forster, he's directing. Mark Forster, the director of Finding Neverland and Stranger Than Fiction. By the way, another Emma Thompson film, of course, referencing
yes, of course.
The guy's got a very interesting style, just to make that clear. And we also have a very interesting writer on this project. We have Tom McCarthy. Tom McCarthy did a rewrite on this film. Of course, Tom McCarthy, for those who may not be aware, I'm going to blow some people's minds here if they don't know this. Tom McCarthy is a name you might recognize from a few very diverse shows and films here. He was one of the writers, not of the initial concept, but he helped out in the writing process for I'm sorry, I'm trying to think if he did the story or the screenplay. He was involved in one of the two, but not both. He was involved in Up. He was the only other name aside from Pete Docter and Bob Peterson who wrote either basically worked on the story for Up.
Uh-huh.
Very interesting, of course, and you can kind of see some Up touches in this film, which I found very interesting, kind of a deeper look into this film. He wrote and directed Spotlight, which is a very good film. It was an Oscar contender. And of course, he's a director and producer on 13 Reasons Why.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
very diverse kind of bona fide for Mr. McCarthy here. So let's see. Of course, we have a star-studded English cast like Mark Gatiss, if I'm saying that right. He, for those who may not be aware, just the name off the cuff. Basically, the guy who plays Giles in the film, Giles Winslow, I believe the fourth. Giles Winslow, the antagonist for the film. He plays Mycroft Holmes in Sherlock on the BBC. Very interesting role, by the way. So I guess the last thing in the backstory I really have here is that, of course, the great Richard Sherman made an epic return for this
yes,
film.
yes. Oh,
I don't mean he just came back to like basically do what he did on Jungle Book, just to kind of oversee like, hey, we got the whole gang back together. Yeah, it's Richard Sherman. And it's not just that. I'm like, hey, can you change a few lyrics so we can just use the same song again? Sure. Yeah, it's something a little bit more than that here. Yeah.
Dragon, the first time I saw it, like we'll kind of build to it, but the first time I saw it, my mind was just, my jaw dropped as a Disney history fan.
Of course, The Boys. Of course, a lot of Richard Sherman love from the Boys documentary. So the point is, he did some reworkings. He wrote some original songs like "Busy Doing Nothing," which we'll talk about a little later on. And that's all she wrote in the backstory so far. On the surface level, before we have all these intimate details revealed on an eventual home media release.
All right, so let's dive right into Act 1.
Here's how we're breaking this down, folks. We're going to break down our 3 acts here, and we're delineating our 3 acts very simply, very much how the film does it. We have our 3 locations of the film. Act 1 is basically all of our stuff in jolly old England.
Then Act 2 is the 100-acre wood stuff, and then Act 3 is kind of the big
race back to London.
Yeah, like, oh my god, it's the Smurf setup, essentially. Which, Dragon, luckily, I think this movie's very smart that it saves all the Smurf style, like, oh, it's the Winnie the Pooh characters in the big city. It saves that for the 3rd act. I think that was a very smart move on its part.
Very true. Okay, so that said, let's again kind of a free flow conversation, kind of talking about kind of the things that grab this kind of some big story points and such, and points of discussion. So let's fire right into that Act 1. London.
So I guess the main thing I want to talk about, Dragon, we have this kind of symmetry going on with the 3 acts where there's these moments, as we see with this rude image we have going on, of Christopher and Winnie the Pooh looking out over the same view and having these heartfelt conversations. And we get that right in the beginning of the movie with young Christopher Robin.
Something dawned on me after I saw it the first time, Tiki. It was so amazing about that scene at the opening. It's the ending of the first movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which makes me. That's why that's why I keep saying the sequel quality, because literally they adapt the ending of Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. That honestly one of the best parts of that film, by the way. The goodbye with Christopher Robin. Oh, it's such a wonderfully performed scene. It's so great, and again, it is the backbone of like kind of what kicks off this film. So it makes a lot of sense to adapt that, and it's fascinating. Again, makes it a quasi sequel, by all intents and purposes. Not like that thing with Hook, where Hook's like a quasi. Like, what exactly are they following? Is it the book? Is it the play?
Right.
Is an original?
Wrote the play? What?
What's going on here? So again, this is very directly. You could actually work this into the main continuity. It's just it's done in live action at the top, but essentially this is exactly how the movie ends. It's boarding school instead of just school. That's the only difference.
Yeah, and Dragon, it's not just Jim Cummings who warms my heart. It's also Ewan McGregor, because it's the kid in this case, but Ewan McGregor, every time he says silly old bear, I'm just like, oh. But the kid, even the kid in this scene at the beginning when he says silly old bear, I'm just like, that was honestly the first time on my rewatch where I was like, okay, here come the tears. Like we're hitting all the emotional heartstrings here with Winnie the Pooh. Dragon, like I said, this movie is like it's a tearjerker, man. Like it's not a feel-good movie for the most part, but I say that in a good way because it's much like Finding Neverland. It's got this kind of like dreamlike quality to it. I almost kind of relate it more to almost like something like Where the Wild Things Are more than anything else.
Like a better version of Where the Wild Things Are.
Well, yeah, I would say a better version of Where the Wild Things Are, yeah, but
Oh, we're talking like the movie, but yeah, sure.
well, yeah, of course I'm talking about the movie. Yeah, the book is a masterpiece, but
Speaking of books, real quick, I love the stylistic choice that we kind of honor again. Now, whether you want to look as a direct honoring of the source material or an honoring of how we worked in the source material in the '77 Disney film, we kind of have these illustrations. Basically, we the very beginning of the movie kind of sets the stage and kind of sets up what's going on through the illustrations from the original book.
yeah, I thought that was clever. I just thought it went on maybe a little bit too long. That's kind of one of the things I was talking about with the pacing. All
You're not wrong, but I think that you're not wrong. All right.
right, and then we enter the kind of the generic, like probably the most generic part of the movie, which is everything before Winnie the Pooh shows back up in the movie.
True,
And
but
Dragon, I gotta say, like even on a rewatch, this stuff is pretty weak.
well, here's the thing. So before we get into all of that, I know exactly what you're going to hit on here. Before we do that, we have to highlight the Life of Christopher Robin montage. That was a really good. I thought that was a really bold choice. I really liked that up front here. And again, that was kind of vaguely, again, knowing what I know now, it's like, yeah, it is kind of like a move from Up almost. It's kind of like not to the same caliber by any stretch. I'm just saying you can see kind of a point of inspiration there where we see a life lived by Christopher Robin. What exactly happened to him after he left the 100-acre woods for last time. And the life that he led, again, very kind of very vaguely married life-esque. And again, in seeing how a life forms, like all these really interesting moments in Christopher Robin's life, which again I felt really telling it. I think this again, bear in mind, folks, I haven't seen it a second time, but still just kind of digesting it thoroughly and just kind of processing. I did see a lot of great thematic stuff here, where again it's I love how he met Evelyn. I love how he just kind of met her and he was doing something very courteous. And it's like another guy that took the seat, the old, give the lady a seat on the bus, that sort of thing. The wartime thing really surprised me. It's like, wow, we're going there in a Disney film. Wow, we're in World War II. We're not shying away from it. Nice. I of course like the bold choice, like leaving your pregnant wife at home the first time. Like, these are choices you don't really see that often in like a live action Disney film, which I felt, yeah, that's quite bold. That's quite refreshing. And character wise, Christopher, I think that I bring this up because I think this is very pivotal to where Christopher's story goes in the whole film. I love that I found it so interesting. The death of his father forced him to grow up faster. And again, if we're kind of looking at this as a vague hook comparison, this is like, what if we really justified why Peter Pan had to grow up? Like, not just like, okay, well, logically he would grow up if he was outside of Neverland. Well, if we actually gave him like a legitimate reason for why he had to grow up, and this sign now again, just the kind of placate Tiki a little bit. Yes, this is a little bit like Finding Neverland too, where one of the boys has to grow up in lieu of being the man of the house. Essentially, it's kind of very much kind of a stamp of this director, it seems.
Oh, and I just realized, Dragon, Highmore. What do you think of Highmore in Finding Neverland?
What did I think? Oh, I thought he was terrible. I thought he killed the whole movie. Yes, he was great, Tiki.
Keep in mind, that was like, I think that was his first ever role.
I mean, that scene on the bench, man. Come on.
Oh my god, that ending, dude. That ending. Oh, Jesus Christ.
What did you think of Heim? What did you think after that bench scene?
I mean, even like he was what, like 8 years old back then.
I'm sure they're like Super 8 films of Freddie Highmore where he's like earning Oscars.
All right.
Anyway, the 2-year-old 2-time Academy Award winner Freddie Highmore. Okay, anyway, getting back to my point here. So yes, I love that Christopher Robin, his father, had passed away, and he had to grow up, and in doing so, it leads to a flaw in his character later on. It leads to kind of the parenting hangups that he has later on. He had to grow up, and we get to see his ideology, and that's what's motivating kind of his understandable kind of issue as a parent right now, where he's assuming blind, like this is the thing to do, like this is the honorable thing to do. This is you should prepare your children. You should put your children's future before fun. And again, it's not coming from a bad place. It's not coming from from a place of, oh, I have to do that. It's coming from a place of he that's what he grew up as, and that's what he, instinctually, like we pass things down to our children, not just genetically, but it's kind of a nature and nurture thing. We pass down certain traits and kind of certain patterns, and that's kind of what Christopher Robin's going to be dealing with in the movie. So I really loved how we set this up visually with that whole sequence and all these like little snippets of his life and seeing how that's affected him. And again, it's like, this little boy that we're used to seeing, kind of bond with this stuffed bear. He's been in war, he's moved on. He has a wife, he has a kid. It's a lot better than just like, okay, it's new status quo, it's just, man, wife, children. He's mad at the children. It's far. I love that we're building up at the top of this, and then we start to get things a little bit kind of drag out momentum after that, though.
So how about that game of Jim Rummy?
See, this is why I wish we're not going to do the thing that we're going to do after the 3-act breakdown, because we're going to get into this sort of stuff, and then we're going to get there. We're going to have nothing to talk about if we talk about Jim Rummy guy right now.
All right, we can kind of shelve Jim Rummy guy, Dragon, but honestly, there's more to talk about besides just Jim Rummy guy. But
that's what I'm saying. But come on, Jim Rummy guy. Don't open that.
My God, wasn't Jim Rummy guy just like the worst part of this movie?
If you had just embodied it to one character, I gotta tell you, I think Jim Rummy guy kind of checks off all the boxes there.
It's so pointless, Dragon. Honestly, it's the one element of this movie, the singular element of this movie, that reminds me of the garbage that is Alice in Wonderland 2010. Because you have to realize Alice in Wonderland 2010 has a very similar premise to this movie. It's kind of like the going back to the childhood fantasy world that may or may not be real some years later. So Alice in Wonderland, ironically enough, also has a very weird take on British culture.
I buy that.
Anyways,
what's funny though? I'll mention this though. It just feels like they left the deleted scene in the movie and they forgot to take it out with Jim Rummy guy. Just feels like, it's like I can imagine this our directors kind of in his chairs, like watching the reel, like the finalized reel. It's like, wait a minute, we left that in. Why is that in there?
Right.
We gotta take that out. We can't take it out. It's already processed. The film's been dried and everything. It's in the can. We can't go back and take it out. What are you, crazy? We can't keep that. There's no payoff. What are you doing putting that in there? I tell you, we're stuck with it. I mean, they won't. I don't know. Fine. Okay, anyway.
Okay, and also Winslow is he's a weak villain, man.
Well, again, bear in mind he's the antagonist. I don't like the villain's like he's not really a mustache twirl, but he's just kind of. You're right, he's weak. It's kind of hard to kind of label him a villain.
Okay, I just think like my problem with him is like the comedy involved with him is like just the most standard, like, oh, look at him, he's a snooty British person.
It's a shame too, because that guy's a really good actor, by the way.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, speaking of good actors, by the way, I just want to mention we had some good actors as our 100 Acre Woods characters, real quick. The highlight two that I felt were really well cast, but I don't think we did enough with them, or something was a little off about them. Alan Rabbit. So Rabbit was voiced by a lot of Doctor Who fans are going to get a kick out of this. Peter Capaldi. He did the voice of Rabbit, and one of my favorites did the voice of Al, Toby Jones.
Oh, yeah, and you're right, we didn't do enough with either of them.
Yeah, it's a shame. We basically
what's off about them, though, Dragon?
What's off about them?
Well, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but they're the only two animals in the movie that aren't stuffed.
But that is accurate it's kind of accurate to the source material, though. That's the thing. I mean, owls, like, they're actual, especially Rabbit. Rabbit never looked like a stuffed toy at any juncture. I mean, how you can make it, it seems really on the money.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, the weird thing about Alan Rabbit is that in this movie, they kind of have this cantankerous dynamic that they don't really have in any other version. If anything, Al kind of has if anything, Rabbit kind of has a cantankerous thing going on with Tigger.
It's a shame that we didn't capture any of that. That's the thing I was really missing, because Rabbit and Tigger famously, it's like Oscar and Felix. These guys are always bickering, and it's one's all fun, one's all like paranoid and structure.
Right. So all of this working stuff is just kind of like, I don't know, like, it's necessary and we need it to get the plot rolling, but honestly, it just kind of feels like any live-action Disney movie where it's like, yeah, we need to eat the vegetables before we need to before we get to dessert. You know what I mean?
That's an excellent comparison, Tiki.
Ah, thank you.
But here's the thing. Here's what I like about it, though. Okay, so on the whole, I'll admit it to you. Absolutely, it's meat. It's sorry, not meat. It's vegetables. Absolutely, is vegetables. It's that we need them for the plot. You know, we need them for the thing. But by the same token, again, what I like
also, I really don't think the gag with all the weird coworkers works at all either.
You're right about that. The coworkers were strange. Like, we did not need the coworker gag. However, I like that we kind of what we did. Again, I'm going to use a Hook comparison here real quick. Is I love that we basically did a much more sympathetic Hook scenario for Christopher Robin here in not only his home life but also his work life here. Where again, it's like the idea is Peter in Hook, he was just very much, he was distracted by work and he was star-studded by work, and it wasn't like he was guilty about working all the time. He loved doing it, and he was good at it. Again, he was a lawyer who was well renowned. That kind of made him like a guy who needs to change. But here, I like the Christopher Robin. Again, whether you like the coworkers now, which again, there's not really a lot to love. They're just kind of like nosy and kind of strange. And the idea is like these are nowhere near as entertaining as his friends in the 100 Acre Woods. That's what they're getting out of it. The point is, I like that he's looking out for the company as a whole. He's taking responsibility. I love out of all the jobs he could have had, I do like the luggage company, by the way, and I like that kind of it connects it to the briefcase and everything. And I don't know, I like the luggage company as if any occupation he could have had. It just seems kind of strange and fun. The idea he's making 20% cuts and he doesn't want to fire anybody, and this impedes his weekend. It's a sympathetic scenario that importantly makes it so that he's not like Christopher Robin is not a bad guy. It makes me more sympathetic to what he's going through. That it's not a clear cut like he just needs to drop work and spend time with his family. It's like he wants to do right by everybody, and in doing that, it's a real world complicated relationship, and I like that element of it, where it could have been really easily like, why is he not just like, why is the solution not obvious? I like that the solution is not obvious. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Also, Dragon, we need to highlight another MVP in this film. I can't believe it's taken us this long to get to her. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mrs. Haley Atwell.
Oh my goodness, good old Haley Atwell. I've met her. She's quite lovely.
So, Dragon, there's one moment early on in this movie that really kind of sells me on Haley Atwell's character, where it's like she's like, "Hello, I'm right in front of you. I'm your wife, standing right here. Hello." I don't know. What I like about Haley Atwell is that she doesn't have a huge role in the movie by any stretch, but she is a very real kind of like, she's not necessarily the angry wife. She's more so concerned. I like that her main point is that Christopher's legitimately going to have like a nervous breakdown if he keeps it at this job. Like she can see that he's kind of wearing himself thin between trying to be the family man and trying to be the company man. And she's kind of trying to relate that to him. And it's not, like I said, it's not necessarily the nagging wife trope. There is one moment in Act 3 with her that I think is a little overly harsh that we'll get to. Well, it's not anything that derails the movie or anything like that, but...
Real quick, one, of course, man, Tiki and I, we have a large fondness for Haley Atwell because we love her.
I would say Haley Atwell is the Veronica to Vera Farmiga's Betty.
Oh my God, yes. yeah, that's a good one. Anyway, sorry, so I want to do semantics and figure that out a little more, but we shouldn't. My point is, anyway, no, I was getting it here. So yes, Haley Atwell, though, I loved her in the movie. Again, she kind of comments the point I was making earlier, but again, I like how we have these great complexities where no one's really wrong in this situation here, and that makes it real. And I will say this though, say what you will, I think she is underutilized because I thought she was great and would have liked to see her a little bit more, but not in a way that would have gotten in the way of our kind of 100 Acre Woods story or anything. But there's a moment in the third act that basically saves all that for me. We get this one moment with Haley Atwell. It's like that sells it. It's like, okay, come what may, whatever happened. That moment makes it all worthwhile for me with Haley Atwell. It's like, yes, Haley Atwell is just one fantastic moment in the movie for me. It's like, oh my God, it's so charming. I love it.
Does it
So
involve
much.
Eeyore?
Yes, it does.
All right, I know what you're talking
I
about.
love
I know
that
what you're
moment
talking
so much. It's one of my favorite moments in the movie.
about.
Get this. Yep. There's a lot of great moments in this movie, bear in mind, folks. Okay, so anyway, to connect things a little bit here to getting to the daughter of it all.
Mm-hmm.
I like that in this situation and kind of this more sympathetic kind of scenario here. I like that he's putting duty before fun, and unknowingly he is putting this hang up onto Madeline, onto his daughter. And there was this really sad gag in the movie. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean there's this real kind of sad yet kind of vaguely meta gag where Madeline would be read to like Christopher Robin. He always miss out on these moments with his daughter. He work all day and come home really late at night by the time it's bedtime. And even when it's like, oh hey, daddy's home, he'd try to read to her and he'd read her something really dry, boring, historical. Like not again this in a movie called based on Winnie the Pooh. You would imagine okay, lively stories. Or again, if your father is Christopher Robin, a guy who's a character who fundamentally is known for having such a great imagination and just reading you kind of these facts and just like basically no story, no storytelling charisma in that scene that McGregor's playing. So and here's the thing that delights me with McGregor here. I love that he can turn on the youthful energy very well, and he has that kind of that boyish charm to him in Act Two. And I like in Act One, you get to see like basically when she rebuffs him here when she says, I'm actually quite tired. You get to see the heartbreak on his face there. And that's a thing like, oh my God, he's just playing. He's a guy in between a rock and a hard place. He wants to be there, but he's not there when it counts. I think McGregor sells that so well.
Yeah, yeah.
So the bridge into the Winnie the Pooh side of things, if I may.
Sure.
I love the dichotomy between Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh in this film. This is something that really dawned on me. I love it. I love that in Act One specifically. We see that these characters are two characters who fundamentally need each other. And right now, we're checking with them since Christopher Robin left at the very top of the movie. In the 30 years that have transpired. Now, again, whether I'm not saying Pooh was like this for 30 years, but I'm saying by the time that these two characters are about to link up,
I have a theory that there's a weird kind of like timeline thing going on with the 100-Acre Wood where time moves a lot more slowly than in our world, but I don't know. That's just kind of a weird headcanon I came up with.
Not a bad theory, and I got my own theories with that sort of stuff. But I love that these are two characters who are on these like lonely islands to themselves. Like they're in a place right now where they're separated from their friends and their family. And again, like the theory I'd lay out is there might be a potential causal link, or it just might be the story that's just okay. Things just happen to be unfolding like they are now, or possibly there's a causal link between these two characters. Like again, basically, Pooh is enacting what Christopher Robin is feeling right now. There's a chance of it, which would explain like why they're coming together all of a sudden now. Again, might be just kind of like may or may not be a causal link. The point is, I like thematically that they're in these very similar character places, and the only way of getting through there to improve themselves specifically, kind of help Christopher Robin. Like Pooh is a character who's created probably just in its, I don't know, from his essence, is a character who needs to help Christopher Robin express his creative freedom. Needs to kind of he expresses creative freedom. They both starve off boredom in a wonderful way, and they need each other, and that's what's kind of bringing them together. And that paralleling, we see what Christopher Robin's feeling through what Pooh is literally going through, and we see what what Pooh's feeling through what Christopher Robin's going through. You see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Of course, we have some fun reprises of Up, Down, Touch the Ground.
Dragon, as soon as I saw Pooh in his pajamas, like the pajama outfit, I was like, oh my God, yep, that's fan service, but it's the best kind of fan service.
I love that whenever this thing fascinated me about the movie. I love that whenever we pulled an old song, I love that it had a different context to it. Like we did it here, it was kind of a sad version of it here. When Pooh's like up, he's all alone now.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, and basically here's the thing that got me emotional. Here's the bit that really got if it didn't make if it either made me glassy eyed or just made me like feel like tingly and everything. It's like, oh my God! The minute I believe it was when Christopher Robin opened the box for the first time, the box of his drawings and everything, the stuff that the reminders.
And then the music starts.
Yes, then we played basically
for sure.
100-acre woods where Christopher, basically we were like, clean it up. Winnie the basically when you hear that in just orchestrally when you hear that soft reprise as he's holding the acorns that Piglet gave him from earlier, it's like yes, that's what I got. That's the moment for me where I felt so I'm like, oh yeah, it's the nostalgic wonder. All
Mhm.
right. So I guess bridging from that, the moment when they reconnect, I guess, unless there's anything else you want to
No, no,
add
no.
on. So
Yeah, the moment they reconnect is definitely a good, it's kind of spoiled in the trailers a little bit, but I,
but
I
that was
like
the
how it
teaser thing,
played.
though. We knew that. That's like you have to have that to get point from point A to point B. We need that for like the sell of the movie. They see each other after all these years.
Of course, of course.
The park scene is magic, and that Billy the whole. And again, you're right. This part was full in the teasers, but again, half the loving sell of it all, where he says, "I've gone cracked." He says, "Not cracked, maybe a few
Maybe a
wrinkles."
few wrinkles. Oh
Oh,
God,
again.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, Jim Cummings, he basically pulls like a kind of a Kermit the Frog, Steve Whitmire trick from 2011 Muppets, where it's like you have that performance that kind of captures the spirit of the original character, like what that character is and what he did in the Muppets.
Absolutely.
Let's see. So I love this too. By the way, speaking of the moment we first heard the music and to make things relevant here and kind of seed some things for later on. I love how Pooh is also a symbol of the connection between father and daughter, and like the father that Christopher Robin could be. Where Pooh is very much the key to the whole film. He's the key to their bond. He's the film's about a father realizing, he has to embrace fun over duty and work and such, and that's kind of shown through again. If he can reconnect with his daughter, if he can basically kind of come alive again, if he can kind of tap into his youth to reach out to youth, then he'll be in good shape. And Pooh, of course, is kind of the bridge between that because his daughter sees these images of Winnie the Pooh and she's captivated by them, which again is something really sweet in itself.
Mhm.
And I love the fact that for both of these characters, Pooh is going to be kind of that the connection to his father, and what I love so much in Act One, my favorite part of the whole movie, and especially Act One, is that's coming up is here. Is he's basically the father that he's kind of been lacking of late being. Is he's going to be looking at his old friend like a child now, and I think that's fascinating. We have this like parent-child dynamic with Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh that I think is really it's really interesting. Again, that it's him. Again, it's him like dealing with his own youth and as well, just again trying to reconnect with his kid, but reconnecting through the symbol of youth for him. That's
Well, Dragon, like I said, I'm really glad that you saw Finding Neverland because I feel like it kind of calls to mind the same sort of themes that Finding Neverland explores, where Jay and Barry kind of had that same sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like throughout that movie, Johnny Depp plays that character as very much someone who's searching for a missing piece of his childhood in a way.
And essentially, what he learns through the course of that film is that there's a fascinating question in Find Neverland. The fascinating question is, who is Peter Pan? And I think I'm not saying it's a hard question. I'm saying it's a fascinating question. And what you have the actual kid, Freddie Highmore, whose name is Peter, and of course, very much kind of the inspiration. But of course, I think what Johnny Depp's journey, what Barry's journey through that film is realizing that no, he was Peter Pan. That he'd become this fictional character that this family had inspired him. He'd become the symbol of what basically brought that family to life. What kind of brought basically all the fun and love that he had with that family was brought about through Peter Pan, and he became the Peter Pan that he put in the play. That's kind of like art imitating life in kind of the finest form what they have in that movie. And we kind of again, you can kind of see the breadcrumbs for how we get that there and how we kind of translate that sort of theme with this director here in this movie, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So that's some of my favorite section of the whole film. I love the train station stuff.
Yes. Oh my God, Dragon, the train station stuff. That's exactly what I'm talking about. This is the pulse of the movie. This is where the movie really gets going. Especially the balloon, Dragon.
Yes.
As soon as we get that balloon, it's like, all right, the movie like kind of takes off. Like it's like a gun kind of firing at the start of a race. You know what I mean? The movie just takes off after that balloon.
Easily my favorite set piece and just sequence, like all the stuff at the train station and to the train itself.
You don't need that balloon, Pooh. Oh, I know I don't need it, but I would like it very much.
I know it's great. It's derailing everything. You're getting the balloon, and again, the balloon as this. basically, this brings about this whole sequence. Like, basically, this is like for me what the movie is, in that it's Christopher Robin with again being confronted by Winnie the Pooh. Don't get me wrong, we have like the idea is like Pooh is making a mess inside the house. Again, it's being the curiosities of a child, and again, there's that very much kind of parent dealing with a child while he's trying to work and that sort of thing. We take that, okay, he's directly dealing and trying to be proactive in resolving the situation. I got to take him back to the cottage, and I gotta send him back. I gotta solve his problem, and in doing so, he's bonding
Almost
with.
kind of like Jungle Book-esque in a way, if you think about it.
I didn't think of that. Yes, I think you're right about that. Yeah, it is kind of Jungle Book-esque. Yeah, I just love. This brings back my favorite quality about Winnie the Pooh. I love that he's just kind of this carefree Zen-like bear, and you have this great dichotomy here. We have like this carefree Zen bear, and you have the stressed out Christopher Robin who's just trying to please everybody, and he's got to deal with this totem from his past. And I love the balloon as kind of a symbol of hope for Christopher Robin, and hope that. And seriously, I love the balloon never gets popped in the movie. By the way.
Yeah, for sure.
And that because it's a symbol, Tiki. It's a symbol of like, again, one, it's a huge image from the book. The famous sequence in the movie. It's in the books where Winnie the Pooh gets. I love how we played the actual physics of it here, where the balloon. Basically, Winnie the Pooh gets a bunch of balloons, or like either one big balloon or a bunch of little balloons, and he floats up, kind of like Gonzo from Muppet movie.
I'm going back there someday.
And essentially what we do here is so much more clever and thematic with it, where we take this balloon here, and it's just a symbol like, no, you don't need to do this. I don't need this, but I would like it very much. And it's just the symbol of like, no, it's just you're having fun. It's just, again, like balloons in themselves are really pointless things. They really are, but I don't know, there's something about them. There's something.
At Disney World, they're such a hassle. Like, you never want to buy a balloon at Disney World because you can't take them into attractions. So what you're stuck with is just kind of like this thing that kind of tethers you outside of rides. It's awful.
Look, if you want to look into the thematic symbolism of balloons, of course, I think Up did it best. And of course, again, one of our Up writers, again, Balloon Up now. What my point is, I think you'll find balloons have a lightness within them, quite literally. And that, there's a levity about a balloon. It's just something that kind of no pun intended. It deflates the tension, but you know what I mean. It's that kind of inflates the relaxation, deflates the tension, I guess, if you want to be.
And of course, in this scene, we have some really killer comedy with people seeing Pooh like, "Hello, are you on an expedition too?"
Just great.
Like the timing of the guy running into the pole.
Yeah, his bear comes alive. Basically, this is the PG version of Ted, essentially.
And then the woman who sees Pooh just talking in the phone booth.
Yeah, where Christopher Robin's like shouting at this bear. But no, seriously, I mean, this bleeds to what I really love in the movie here. So when they're on the train, and the balloon's like, no, my balloon, Christopher says, well, yeah, I have to leave it out there. And of course, later on, once I'm getting ahead of myself, the balloon payoff here. My point is, I love that when they're in the car, they're in the car together, in the carriage together, and you have Christopher Robin with all his work laid out on the table, and you have a Pooh across from him. He's playing this game like, I say what I see. Mm-hmm. He's just like naming things. I don't know what that is. Like dog, man with dog. Clouds. It's just a little softer Pooh, and it's delightful. And again, this is what I'm talking about. This is like, again, he's dealing with a child, and again literally dealing with his inner child, technically. Mm-hmm. But again, in doing so, he's being the father that he's being a little neglectful of. Lately, and I just love that great quiet moment of Pooh across from Christopher Robin playing this game, and Christopher Robin. It's the charm of Winnie the Pooh and Christopher Robin. Again, it's so fascinating seeing again someone who's just, his imagination has been stifled for so long because he had to face the realities of the world, and it's slowly coming back to him. And we set this up and we pay this off so beautifully, and we had this beautiful little moment together. This is a moment that kind of made me cry on the inside of how beautiful it was, where this woman tries to go basically share the car with him. And he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's taken. Can't you see?" And again, that's Chris Robin. He's just letting in a little bit of fun, realizing.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like that beautiful little moment. It's like, Pooh, I can't stay mad at you. It's like one of those little moments. And after that, then we have this beautiful punchline to the whole thing, where they leave and it says, "Oh, look, Christopher, my balloon." And it says, "Oh Oh yes, there again. It's like that's the symbol of like there's hope for Christopher Robin. There's
for
hope
sure, for
for
sure.
childhood. For there's hope for just kind of that unspoiled spot that Walt Disney's always talking about. There's hope for it, man. It's something beautiful that symbolism there. Oh my God! So again, Act One. So again, the Act One, you're right, does drag a little bit with kind of the setup of kind of our London stuff. But again, all of our Pooh and Christopher Robin stuff. So it's worth the price of admission for all of that. My God, it's astonishing.
All right, so Act Two, we get a nice kind of course, it starts with the whole, oh, I do believe that I am stuck.
Have you just eaten? Have you just eaten honey?
And then very quickly we get kind of a separation between Pooh and Christopher Robin that'll kind of stick with it throughout the whole act. Again, it's kind of a risky move to have Pooh kind of written out of Act Two throughout a majority of it.
But it feels like a natural choice, though, because one, I love how clever. One of those clever moves of the Hundred Acre Woods to me was I love how it reflects. Again, whether this is like because of some causal link, that's for like theorists to kind of delve into. My point is, whether it's literal or just figurative, I love the Hundred Acre Woods reflects Christopher Robin's emotional state. And again, there's a line that kind of alludes to this, which makes me think that there might be a link there because basically when Christopher Robin gets into the spirit of things, that's when the weather becomes really sunny and really nice, like the Hundred Acre Woods that we saw at the very top of the movie. And think about it, when he gets there, it's all kind of
almost kind of like my first symbolism.
I mean, honestly, it does have.
I don't say that in a bad way, Dragon. I just say that in a way where it's a movie for adults, but it's also a movie where kids can understand the subtext of it in a way, even on a subconscious level.
Yeah, I mean, it does have some Saving Mr. Banks qualities because we always one of the biggest joys that we had when you were talking about Saving Mr. Banks is like there was no editing move by accident. All the editing was so strategic and so plot related. Basically, in the way that Del Toro makes Shape of Water with everything is on purpose and everything has a purpose. I love that basically Saving Mr. Banks is edited that way, and it's phenomenal. And we kind of have, again, thematically, I think we have something akin to that here. Thematically, nothing is done by accident. At least I'd like to think that. I can't confirm that, but it sounds like, yeah, after Finding Neverland, I'm inclined to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I like this when Christopher Robin gets there. Of course, the guy is in a literal fog, and London is on his mind. So the Hundred Acre Woods is very kind of foggy and kind of ambiguous and kind of a little menacing than we remembered it. So it's very foggy when we first get there, and of course then Chris Robin's he's kind of caught in life struggles right now, and he doesn't know what to do. He's literally in a fog, and of course, then at the moment he becomes frustrated with Pooh. And of course, I love Tiki. I respect the movie for some people have kind of made fun of this, but I like that. Not in a mean way. So they pointed this out, I should say. Christopher Robin snaps at Pooh. He doesn't like yell at him. He doesn't he doesn't say anything really harsh. He just says things that are technically true. That Pooh is self-described.
He's a very little brain,
and that's how Pooh self-describes himself sometimes. It's not really mean, but I love that we took the time. We had two really important purposes of this. I love that one, it makes sense. It might have been a hard sell if Chris Robin didn't get a little annoyed at Pooh after all this time because Pooh he made a mess of his house, a big mess.
Oh my God, yeah, we kind of skipped over that, but the honey scene, Dragon, I believe, is the scene that gets the biggest reaction in theaters. Both times I saw it, like just how much of a mess Pooh makes with that honey.
That's the thing with the honey, and he crashes like a whole.
That's the thing, because my theater was filled with adults both times I saw it. That was like it was almost like a horror movie. It was almost like, oh my God, they're gonna have to clean up all the stuff on the table, and they're gonna have to clean up the footprints. That's
the thing, right? And so I mean, you believe. I mean, you're with me, right? It's like it's
teddy bear is like getting all sticky and
you can buy it that he would be a little again it'd be a little irritated or frustrated. At the very least, he's frustrated with Winnie the Pooh. He's going out of his way here. He's trying to help man. Basically, Winnie the Pooh is steering him in circles, and like he's all of his very important paperwork Chris Robin, he's trying to save his department here by cutting cutting the budget by 20% so you can basically make things efficient. I mean, it's there, folks. I'm just stammering a little bit to kind of find what exactly the wording was for the.
No, I think you got it right on the money.
He needs to make things more efficient, so he needs to reduce expenditures by 20%. I think that's exactly right. I think that's what it is. Anyway, so he's snapping at Pooh because he's frustrated. He's in over his head, trying to make everybody happy. He's got a lot going on here, and plot wise, so strategically, we separate This might sound kind of Joseph Campbellian here, so forgive me, but it's he's separated from his guide in this once familiar land, if you will. He is separated
Oh,
from
I
his
like
guide.
that. I like that.
Seriously, he's literally separated from his guide, kind of his totem in the world, so he can re-experience it on his own terms, and again, so we can meet the other characters, which we need to do. So again, as much as we love Winnie the Pooh as a concept is very much the supporting characters. And as I mentioned before, like many people, they gravitate towards characters. Like some people gravitate really towards Tigger, some people towards Eeyore, or again, your piglets, your piglets, your rabbits, your roos, or more accurately, your Winnie the Poohs. So
I'm definitely an Eeyore.
Oh, sure. I mean, Eeyore's such a fantastic character. I mean, for me, it's probably I don't know, it's probably Pooh than Eeyore, but sometimes if more Eeyore than Pooh, it kind of goes back and forth. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense that he would get fed up, and of course that we would separate him in the story, and then we'd have this great storm sequence. Where, by the way, I hope you noticed. You've seen it twice. I had to notice this. You got your little wish.
What do you mean?
Christopher Robin fell down a hole.
And
It's Gopher's hole, Tiki.
oh, yeah, right. Of course. Yeah, I did notice. I did notice Gopher's hole. Yes, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was watching. I was thinking about you. I was thinking, oh, hey, Tiki got his little wish there. Look, the gopher
I would
hole.
have liked a cameo, but
I knew they weren't going to show that gopher, but I'm saying they went the extra mile and giving him that hole there. And again, I like that. That's them acknowledging that. No, we're going to stick with the original guys here, but hey,
uh-huh.
got him a hole. We mentioned him. He's there. Move on.
Sure.
So two things with that, by the way. So we have Christopher Robin. Basically, he's stuck in a hole, and he's basically being kind of flooded to the surface, and that gets this real trippy Heffalump sequence, which is really kind of neat and eerie. But I really like this. I love that we pay off the waterproof luggage. This is what sells me on the luggage company, by the way. I love that we set up like this line of luggage is part of our waterproof line. That of course explains why the papers are undamaged. Of course, we got to set up the papers really, in
Of
a big
course.
way. But yeah, I love that. I love that a lot of this is coming back in really interesting ways. It's the next morning, so Christopher Robin, he comes to after the rain has kind of flooded him to the surface. Now we meet our good pal, Eeyore.
Yeah. This is Brad Garrett, man. Brad Garrett just absolutely knocks it out of the park.
I can't say enough nice things about this man. I really can't. Brad Garrett, he's just such a consummate performer and hilarious comedian. And here he plays he brings this character. Here's the thing, Tiki. Brad Garrett's been preparing for this role for his life. I'm not really joking with that. He's always been in his comedy and in kind of very self-deprecating, like in commentaries and stuff in interviews. He always refers to himself as Eeyore. So he has quite literally his whole life been preparing for this role, technically.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's always viewed himself as Eeyore, especially during his Everybody Loves Raymond years. He played Robbie as Eeyore a lot of the time on that show. So he's been preparing for this, and I love
So
that.
my favorite part of this Eeyore thing with Christopher Robin is his persistence with the Heffalump thing.
She's so defeatist about everything,
Oh,
Hey,
sure. That's what you would want me to think, Heffalump. Hello,
listen,
Heffalump.
again, because they've never seen a Heffalump, they're assuming something different, something vaguely imposing is the Heffalump right off the bat. But I kind of had an epiphany with Eeyore. I feel Eeyore is sort of, if I'm going for a Happy Days comparison with the Winnie the Pooh characters, let's see. Pooh is Richie Cunningham. Tigger's Fonzie, is the breakout, got the movie and everything. Everybody loves most marketable Fonzie. And for me, I would say I think Eeyore's Howard Cunningham.
Oh man.
In that he's
Dragon, why exactly are we comparing Winnie the Pooh characters to Happy Days characters?
well, I'm saying if Tigger's the breakout, and you think breakout character, you think Fonzie, and of course,
All
Winnie the
right.
Pooh, very all American, very it's Richie Cunningham. But again, the key to Pooh is very literally the key to everything. If you view him as the key to everything, he is again Richie Cunningham and Fonzie's dynamic is what makes that show. Henceforth, the Happy Days comparison, and I say Howard Cunningham. for Eeyore because he's the heart of it. He's kind of that consistent character. He's that consistent beloved character. Like, Howard Cunningham is a character who never changed. He was always kind of a loving father who was not just like he never punished anybody, but had real stern talking to. And he was full of love and understanding. And he's always consistent. Eeyore is kind of that safe consistency within the Winnie the Pooh universe, which is this iconic character. Or the easier comparison, Gonzo from the Muppets. He's very much the Gonzo of the Winnie the Pooh character.
I mean, you see, that I can sign off on.
I know. I was just trying to go a little a little more Americana with it, but sure. Anyway, yeah. So of course, Eeyore is very very iconic, and then that was very well realized here. He's just kind of this. He's given up. He's just like, I'm going over the waterfall. And yeah, I love this Christopher.
That waterfall thing is just hilarious. It's just like.
I love Christopher Robin's realization that, like, oh wait, no, it's
don't give up, Eeyore. You can do it. No, I can't. It's too late for me. Everyone's gotta go sometime.
Look at it. I love Christopher Robin. I just love him going to save Eeyore, though, even though it's like 2 feet of water, practically. God, he saved it for like a very itty bitty waterfall. He's probably basically bumped into like, ow.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it. So I love this section here. I love we pair Eeyore with Christopher Robin here. Basically, we had kind of this detective Christopher Robin segment of things here. Basically, puts together the mystery of the Heffalump. Like, okay, they heard a noise that they thought was the Heffalump, and they all scattered and ran away. Basically, again, it kind of solves the mystery.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the second time I saw it. I was like, oh, I bet Dragon likes this because it has a real detective mystery quality to it.
And it was neat. And again, in pairing him with Eeyore, again, I feel the one caveat, and it's not a negative caveat necessarily. I just feel that Eeyore and Pooh, Pooh, and Tigger, they really got the limelight specific again because they're as I mentioned, they're kind of your trio here. They're kind of your Kermit, Fozzie, and Gonzo, if you will. They're the 3 kind of mainstays. Therefore, everybody else, they just kind of Piglet comparatively got the most following those 3, but I mean everyone else just kind of fell into the background really.
Mm-hmm.
But again, by that stretch, I mean Eeyore was a show stealer in the best of ways here because we had this delightful section. We had the imaginary Heffalump fight. Let's talk about that.
Oh yeah, this was definitely a centerpiece of the movie. I thought for sure. Of course, we see in the trailer, we hear that line of dialogue. Christopher Robin, it's you playing again. And Dragon, I think what was clever about that is that we do this a couple times in the trailer where we kind of subvert the dialogue. And this was probably the most clever time we do that, where in the trailer it looks like it's right when Christopher Robin first shows up with Eeyore and saves him in the river, but no, we get this great kind of this is where Ewan McGregor's performance really started to come alive for me.
Oh yeah.
Where he was like kind of jumping around and using the weather vane as the weapon and all that stuff. And I love Brad Garrett's performance. He's just kind of like, wait a minute. It's like the closest you could ever see to a happy Eeyore. You know what I mean?
I know. It's Eeyore with me. And here's the thing that delighted me and really warmed my heart. This might be one of the most heartwarming moments in the movie for me, to be quite honest. Again, I gotta get my mother. And again, Eeyore is always on my radar because my mother loved Eeyore, so it's kind of a bit of that. But there's this delightful moment where, again, we have this really fun scenario of like no one can recognize him as Christopher Robin because one, it's been years, he looks very different. But again, as we kind of see this.
Love that Winnie the Pooh is the one person who can recognize him right away, though. That's an important thematic thing of the movie.
It's like Dorothy and the Scarecrow; they bond the most. I'll miss you the most, Scarecrow.
God.
It's kind of one of those things where they're the best, like they were best buddies. They're the flip side of the same coin. And also, you'll notice, and again, there might be like a causal link or like a thing about the 100-Acre Woods here because he looks at his reflection in the water, and again, this is very directly Hook inspired, by the way. Looks in the water, and it's like, hey, he looks like young Christopher Robin again.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that. This is a fun way to reignite who Christopher Robin is.
Like I said, Dragon, my first symbolism.
Yes, but basically he reignites kind of the spark of what Christopher Robin is. Again, well, we always know about Christopher Robin is period as a character. Again, he's the guy who plays imaginary games with his pals in 100 Acre Woods, and there's always that lingering question like, are they stuffed animals that are come to life because he's imagining them, or what? And basically through this hallmark of who Christopher Robin is, and they don't recognize him until this moment happens. And Eeyore, I love that after this, Eeyore's separated from the rest of the pack because he needs a witness, and and he basically, oh, I'm being kidnapped. No one come to help me. I love that.
Leave me right here for the heffalump to get me. Typical, typical.
I love that after that moment, you have the whole like Christopher Robin play him. After that, I I love that Eeyore's on his side helping him out, making the Heffalump noises. I love that Eeyore helped him out. That warmed my heart so much. He's like, oh my God, Eeyore's being helpful. And he said, yeah, it's the closest, it's like the most lively you've ever seen Eeyore, yet he's still being himself there. And I love that for him. Again, it's kind of like almost in the same way that he had that close-knit relationship with Pooh. He kind of had that with Eeyore, that Eeyore is possibly the smartest of the Winnie the Pooh characters, but he just doesn't brag about it. And it's like he's putting it together. It's like, all right, I'll help out. It was just he's like he's in on. He knows like how this is going to serve the greater good. But Eeyore's not a character who needs praise or needs thanks or anything. It's just it's so lovely. It's such a lovely, brilliant idea. And again, it's like this is the kind of territory you can do, like revisiting the 100 Acre Woods 30 years later. This is the kind of stuff you can explore. Felt very warranted versus something like. And again, a lot of people have been comparing this to the whole the imaginary food scene, and it's kind of like that. But I love it's not just ripping that off.
I think this is better than the imaginary food scene. Honestly,
that's what I'm saying.
The imaginary food scene just. First of all, there's a lot of logistical things about the imaginary food scene.
Like, are the kids starving? Like, what's the deal there? Like, are they just delusional from hunger?
And then also, there's that really creepy moment that you and I talked about. The whole like, you're playing with us, Peter.
But yes, this again, this play, if not plays better than at the very least, it doesn't just borrow from it. It's a whole, it's imaginary. I feel there's a lot of try to get my bearings here on what exactly this is. It's basically I love how we explored, and again, it's very different from how we did it than how this director did it in Finding Neverland. I love that we did kind of imagination in a practical sense, that we never saw the imagination, but you felt it, that it was conveyed and you saw it through other characters, but we never saw like kind of it expressed artistically, or like, again, we never saw it expressed in a literal sense. It was always in kind of a thematic sense, or like in an emotional sense from the characters. And I felt that's really hard to pull off, yet we did it so well here. And oh, by the way, we glazed over this, but this is important. Real quick, just backtrack just a smidge. We're getting close to the end of Act 2. Act 2 goes by really fast and really think about it. I love this. There's this beautiful little moment with Winnie the Pooh before they got separated. Pooh's introduced to Evelyn and Madeline. This is another moment like, oh my God, it's like Pooh seeing the life that Christopher Robin had through his wife and child. And he says, and Pooh's first thought, this good-hearted character's first thought is, you think she would like this balloon? Oh my God, yes. And of course, basically now again circling back here to the reunion between Pooh and
and this is what I'm talking about here.
Oh, this is the line. This is the moment.
Yeah. This is the I need my Barry Allen line, Dragon. This is it right here. All right. So Pooh is, of course, first of all, I love the notion that Pooh is just sitting at this familiar location waiting for Christopher Robin, and it kind of sets up the.
Because they promised to wait there. Remember that they made that promise at the very top of the movie.
And it also kind of sets up the line, like of oh, sometimes I wait for something to what is it, Dragon? The oh shoot, I should know this. Like
basically, when I wait for nothing, when I wait for something to happen, I do nothing.
Yeah, something like that.
Basically, the whole nothing something is a very strong thematic. It's very much kind of the stitching of the film, if you will.
And so Christopher Robin and Pooh are having this big heart-to-heart, and Christopher Robin is like, I don't know what to do, Pooh. I'm lost. And then, oh God, Dragon. Honestly, this was the biggest tearjerker moment in the theater for me. Like, this was the moment where I kind of needed to dab my eyes with my shirt. You know what I mean?
Someone find the inside-out tissues.
That's what I'm saying. That's where Pooh was like, but Christopher, how could you be lost when I just found you? And then he gives Christopher Robin the biggest hug. And then Christopher gives him a hug. And then we kind of cap it off with a joke. He's kind of like, Christopher, you're crushing me, or something like that.
Yeah. Don't forget, we also had this great moment where Christopher Robin said, "You're not a bear of little brain, you're a bear of big heart."
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But of course, so what you would say, Tiki, you could say that's the world may need the flesh, but I need my bear.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Sure. Jesus. All right. So Christopher wakes up, kind of has to rush back to London, and then we get our Act 3. So Tigger is kind of like the big the big catalyst for Act 3 in a lot of ways.
Real quick, just to bridge us to that moment, I want to point that I love thematically in our story here, kind of our act breaking down the acts here. I love that the movie's essentially over after he leaves, and seemingly it's over after he leaves because he's relived his childhood. But I love that thematically kind of that Campbellian thing here.
I like how he's playing the game on the train. That's kind of like my first thematic element or something like that.
Right. But I love that
thematic tie.
Right. Anyway, I love I was getting at here. Oh yes. So I love that again the movie essentially is over, but I love that in terms of Christopher Robin's arc, the thing that he's missing, he needs to again the Campbellian logic here is that he needs to evoke the lessons that he's learned, based on the lessons that have been reinvigorated in the 100 Acre Woods to his life in London, which is why we go back to London. So I love that he needs to take what he's learned. He needs to invoke it in life to show that he has learned something. Because he has learned something. He's trying to be proactive about it, but he still has to make everything happen. He has to enact it and kind of have like a big moment where he can make it all, basically make or break everything.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So yes, Act 3. So again, Tigger shenanigans basically leads us into Act 3.
So Tigger replaced all the important papers with like mementos of their day,
which is
in the briefcase.
Which is lovely, but again, like that's classic Tigger. Again, Tigger means well, but he's kind of look again. If Fonzie and Happy Day doesn't grab, let's just say he's kind of Kramer. He's kind of the Kramer of
I can see that. I can see that. No, look, the Fonzie from Happy Days, I'm fine with. It's just the Eeyore comparison that I kind of say, that's maybe.
Yeah, against Howard Cunningham all of a sudden, he was delightful.
I don't have anything against him. I'm just saying. Anyways.
Anyway, what was it again? Oh yes. So basically, we're on a mission to. So of course, now we've set this up. We touched on this a little bit here. So, so Giles, otherwise known as the Woozle.
Oh God.
Basically, our 100 Acre Woods gang, they've misinterpreted. Christopher Robin basically said these papers are important, and basically he'll be eaten by a Woozle. He says it, but they misconstrue it as Woozle, meaning that okay, so basically he'll get chewed out, he'll be eaten alive by the Woozle, which of course they do not want to happen. Of course, people are like, oh no, Christopher Robin's in danger, we got to save him. So they're on a mission to save Christopher Robin from the Woozle, otherwise known as Work. And our boss man, Giles there, Giles basically he's a real prick, and we're getting into those.
Yes, and also we have a bit of a Howard Hamlin gag.
I know, yeah. Basically, we have like Howard Hamlin ever a bad. So I'm thinking of the Shaggy Dog where we had Robert Downey Jr. as the bad guy, and I'm thinking if we had Howard Hamlin as the bad guy over live action Disney remake or live action Disney film, if we had Howard Hamlin, he'd basically be a lot like this guy, but hopefully more compelling.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, more on him later. We're jumping.
The thing about this, Dragon, the ridiculous thing about this, it's kind of one of the things that sort of like tanks. It doesn't tank it, but it's like a logical leap you have to make. Like, all right, this movie kind of has to spell it out a little bit. Why in God's name would this guy bring his entire golf club set with him to work?
Well, he put the golf club set in his office, I presume, but
it's like if you don't want people to know that you spent the whole weekend jerking off, essentially, then why come to work with the evidence, Dragon?
He's very well. I'll argue a point with that when we get to it. Just put a pin in it for a moment.
All right.
Okay, just for a moment.
It's
Anyway,
like
so
it's the silliest part of Act 3 for me. It really is.
that whole character is really silly. He makes no. Here's the thing. We'll get to him.
I mean, at least we like. I almost like. What would be worse, Dragon, if the Gin Rummy guy came back in Act 3, or the fact that we don't have a payoff to him, like we, like currently is now. Like, what's the worst outcome?
Do you mean if June Rummy guy shows up or not?
No, I mean like what would you prefer if he actually did show up, even though it might have the potential to tank Act 3, or what we have now where he doesn't show up, but at the same time it's kind of like this weird sort of like enigmatic like disappearing plot line.
I'll take the disappearing plot line. I mean, it was less cyanide. I'll take less cyanide over more cyanide. It's like anyway.
It would have been a great payoff for that.
Yeah, you could save this from we actually talk about Gin Rummy guy, Tiki. All this. Can you like earmark the page here?
All right, fine.
We'll get to him. Don't worry. We'll get the Gin Rummy guy. We'll give him all the attention he deserves. So anyway, okay, so Act 3, folks. Sorry about that. Act 3. I love how proactive our characters are here. It's not. I love that it's not a gimmick. It's not like, oh, we have to put them in the real world. I love that. Okay, they're being proactive and trying to help Christopher Robin. It's again as Christopher Robin thematically, and again, there's always that possible causal link here that 100 Acre Woods follows him because they have to make sure that he invokes what he's learned in life. But as Christopher Robin most likely is on a path of doing that, they proactively are trying to help Christopher Robin's life. They're trying to, again, as he helped them, they're trying to repay the favor here, and that brings us to kind of a good version of the Smurfs premise here, where it's like, okay, we're bringing our beloved characters into the real world. Like one of those, they're in the real world plots, but better. So we have this adorable team up with Madeline. So by the way, I love that Madeline. I'll get into my negatives with kind of getting us at the top of Act 3. It's like basically end of Act 2, top of Act 3 thing. We'll get into that with some pros and cons.
I love how Tigger instantly takes a liking to Madeline.
Sure, I mean everybody likes Madeline.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean I love that we had this balloon payoff here. Pooh again recommending that Chris.
That was nice. That was nice.
And I love that she plays this balloon and it does not pop.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, and she had a good time with it. So again, we have this adorable team up, and again, Pooh is kind of the link between father and daughter, the symbol again through the balloon and everything, just kind of that childhood hope, and again, like Christopher Robin enjoying life and having fun, his daughter having fun and enjoying life. It's very much. Again, it's the emotional backbone of this film is a girl helping her father. And it's very much what this is all about here. And again, this adorable team up of these two plot lines very much in service of Christopher Robin learning a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. So we have this the train has this is beautiful callback on the train. We have two callbacks to the train here. One with Christopher Robin playing the game as you mentioned, and of course Madeline and the gang on the train. Basically, play nap time, and of course, like she gets all the tea and the.
I love how Madeline's like kind of like playing into her, the fact that she's an adorable little girl with a bunch of stuffed animals. She's kind of like taking advantage of that.
Remember, she's very smart, and again, I'd like to give, even though I have no basis for this, but I just like to say, in this film, I'd like to think that she got her smarts from her mother, and she got her imagination from her father. I'd like to think that.
Sure.
Who knows? Because remember, she's really bright, hence the whole plot line of like she doesn't want to go to boarding school like Christopher Robin did.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. So basically Madeline leads us kind of this little adventure, of course, honey on the train, which is pretty funny, like giving Pooh the honey. Yeah, I love when they get into the cab, and again, I love this little girl carrying all these stuffed toys, seemingly, and of course they come to life, and it's of course it wigs out the cab driver, and of course I
love that great like the Tigger thing. Unfortunately, was kind of spoiled in the trailer, but
yeah,
we do get a little bit more of it in the actual movie where Tigger's like he's trying to contain himself, but he's just like he's pissed, man. He's just like, but I'm the only one. Where he's seeing his reflection, and then I love how he. Like we get this great kind of like where he just breaks character with the cab driver where he's like step on it, like right to the cab driver, he's just getting like really into it.
It's honestly, again, another weird comparison, folks. It's almost like a Frosty the Snowman when we're like, you're talking snowman. It's like one of those when the cop enters the
Arrest
fray
this
and he's
little girl at once.
it's just it's priceless. So then we have the big chase. Basically, the big chase where Evelyn, again, Evelyn being a good mother, and Haley Atwell, of course, acting, doing what she can in the screen time that she has, and I say it in the best of ways. She very proactively, she like her girls run away and essentially got to search through London before something bad happens to her, and she's very responsible, and it's basically going to lead to this third act chase, which again gives credence to it versus like, oh, we have to have a third act chase. It feels natural, like you want to save the little girl.
Yeah.
Anyway, so again, all this is kind of unfolding. Then we have this very smooth to kind of fast forward things a little bit. Basically, exciting chase leads to kind of the big window plant, like Tigger, Eeyore, and Piglet. That whole thing. Basically, he's explaining to his wife, it's hysterical. Him explaining to his wife this crazy, this crazy, unbelievable stuff, and of course, boom, proof. And I love that we just have that moment of like. Proof. Again, that to me is the thing I wish was not spoiled in the marketing. That to me is like the one spoiler. If they just took that out, I think the marketing would have been a lot better shape if they just took that out. Really.
I kind of feel the same way about the Tigger bit, to be honest with you.
Sure. So I think one of the really smart choices. I'm sorry. I think one of the really smart choices was for the papers to blow away. I thought it was a really smart choice. We have Madeline and Pooh, and I love it with Pooh as well because Pooh knows the significance of the papers and everything. They have the papers that are about to make their way into the building. Of course, they slip on the steps and they blow all like, the parts unknown. They're all scattered about. They save like one page, and it's like I love this. Brings about one of the smartest choices in the movie for me. It's this Christopher Robin's moment of change and great realization.
Yeah, and it's very subtle, Dragon. It really is.
Oh god, I love it so much. And what we did here is basically Christopher Robin has this, and McGregor acting the heck out of this moment. It's kind of a micro moment. You have to really be paying attention to see him. Really, it dawns on him.
It's set up earlier with Rue, where Rue's asking, "Is the briefcase more important than Madeline?"
Yeah.
And Christopher Robin's like, "Well, no, she's my daughter. I'd do anything for her."
Why isn't she here?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I mean it's all.
Can I just say, like, Rue had very limited screen time, but my god, the design for Rue was just adorable.
Oh, sure.
Anyways.
So, basically, it's like a little micro moment before, basically, Christopher makes kind of his gut instinct, which is a good instinct. I just love you can see him processing it for a moment and then just kind of going into, basically, the fatherly care and love here. But I love that he basically, in this moment, she basically, I was hoping to deliver you the papers so I wouldn't have to go to boarding school. And Chris Robin, basically, he's been ruminating on this for a large portion of the movie. Like, when he's kind of dawning on it, maybe I shouldn't send my kid to boarding school. Again, factoring in the thing in Act 1, I was really gushing about the whole seeing what kind of led Christopher Robin down his life choice to being kind of a guy living kind of this, working at a job that made him miserable and took him away from his family and everything, all because of that boarding school and everything. Again, the idea that there is like a proper, it's very much like, especially in the 40s and like the early wartime era in London, there was very much like a whole, you send the kids away. The British aren't really known for their warm. They're not really the warmest people. I don't mean that in a negative way. They're very.
Oh man, Jesus Christ! Way to generalize there.
No, I'm saying it's like a self-admission
that sounded like way harsher than I'm sure you meant it to, Dragon.
No, I'm saying I've heard I've heard English people do this by self-admission. It's like a known thing over there where it's like it's like there's a sense of it's kind of you people through it's like what actions more than words, like more than saying things, like it's action to speak louder. And basically you'd send a child off to boarding school for their own good so they'd have a very advantageous life. It would be for their own good. It's basically sending a kid to college as they're a kid though, but they're a kid, and that's the emotional. You always got these. There are a lot of boarding school horror stories, and I think that's kind of what Christopher Robin's realizing. He missed out on the last years with his father because of boarding school. He missed out on a lot of stuff. And that's essentially, it's all dawning on him in this moment here, the realization that, oh my God, my kid's going through all this, so I won't send her away. And that has impacted my life. It would take me. I don't want to be taken away from my daughter. I don't want her to be taken away from me. I don't want her to go through life. Basically, it's like, has Christopher Robin learned anything in the movie? Absolutely, yes, he has learned something. He's not going to send her down the same path that he went down, leading him to what he needed to go through in this movie. And I love how we economize that all into this one moment.
Yep.
Great. It's fantastic. And of course, before we get to the whole how Christopher Robin saved the days, let me hit my favorite Haley Atwell moment here. So, my God, there's this one little moment, like they're in the car when all of our poo cares are in the car when they before they link up, where Christopher Robin's introducing his old friends to his wife Evelyn. And says, "Who's this?" This is Evelyn, my wife. And of course,
Hello, Evelyn, my wife.
it's just here's the thing. It
Hello,
gets me.
talking donkey. How are
That's
you today? Oh, don't get me started.
That's the moment right there, folks. That's when I say, "Where come what may." Even though we didn't do a lot with Haley Atwell in the movie, she was great when she showed up. That's the lines. Like we had Haley Atwell talking to Eeyore. Yes, just yes.
Yep.
Yes, just nothing bad coming from that at all. Just like Evelyn, my wife, just butchering the name. It just has this little exchange. It's like a one line scene. It's perfect. Oh, God. Okay, so I like the solution at the end of things here. I love the whole basically how Christopher Robin kind of pulled the solution at
Yeah,
the
I
end.
did too, and I liked how the solution was kind of foreshadowed by the fact that like this guy, like it wasn't just the one company he ran, but it was kind of like like the subsect of a bunch of different companies.
Sure. Well, again, it's like a department within a company essentially, but yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I love basically kind of flip this chart, and again, it's a very simple solution, and I think the solution might have dawned on them regardless, but I like that the pyramid kind of helped kind of put on the fray and gave them like something to present at least. So again, but again, let's talk about Giles a little bit here. So Giles, instead of helping, he's been golfing the whole weekend. The guy's just like he's a prick, and basically the minute that Chris Robin, he's having obviously a crisis here, and of course a family crisis, he takes the opportunity to basically lay off Christopher Robin's job and his entire department and everything, just because like, and again, let me phrase this, folks. He had done nothing at Alders, and I remember at the beginning, I was thinking this during the movie. He's like, wait a minute, he said he was going to help him during the weekend or something. Of
Yep.
course, yeah, we never saw him again. I mean, I know Chris Robin disappeared on him, but we never really addressed that. He's been golfing. He made no attempt. No phone call, nothing. And again, this guy then he's just trying to out Christopher Robin, basically sell him as crazy, because all the stuff that's it's in his bag and everything, and he's such a scumbag. And honestly, what I love we have basically Chris Robin standing up to a bully with this story. I really love that he's kind of calling this guy out, and basically this is like the idea is his father's his father, Old Man Winslow. Is the guy basically the guy on his left, I think.
Old Man Winslow kind of reminds me of the department store owner from Big.
Robert Loggia? Oh, wait. Do you mean? Well, no, he didn't own the. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. Yes. Anyway.
I mean,
Yeah.
obviously a much more condensed version of that, but kind of, it kind of had the same dynamic where, like where the son is like kind of like the prick, and then he's just like, oh, well, no, actually, let's hear this guy out. I like this guy. He's got ideas.
Right. Anyway, let's see, what was I? Oh yes. So yeah, I mean, so he stands up to the bully and he wins over old man Winslow. And look, I'm sure there's some semantical things that are wrong. Like, oh, how's he really going to turn a profit? They do this. I'm sure. There's going to be that one guy who's going to point that out. And that
Pixar, we don't care, certified.
Exactly. It makes enough sense. It's a great surface level solution. You give people more time off, and hey, you lower your prices, they're going to buy it because now you've given them time off, and that makes sense. And again, folks, I cite this. It's people are busy, especially kind of like post wartime 40s. They're going to be busy.
Mm-hmm.
Busy with working, trying to make up for lost time. Again, it makes sense. You get them all holidays. Not a lot of people are going to have holidays at this time, and you sell more luggage. You lower the price. It sounds like a good beginning of a solution there. And it giving Christopher Robin his foot in the door to fix things. So it all worked. Let's see. So then we return to our start with the 100-Acre Woods, now with his family. And it's kind of a beautiful sight that he's taken his family to the place that defined his life and defined who he is.
And the red sweater dragon, that's what really got to me.
I know the red sweater was so good. Christopher Robin basically in the position you see before you here, folks, where he and Pooh. On the flip side of this, they're finally together again, and basically emulating the very impactful. Only this movie, only Winnie the Pooh basically gives like the same ending of the first movie, and that is recapped at the top of this movie, and just like so. Here we go again.
Right.
Again, it's a patented ending. Let's just do it again, but it's fine. It's just, again, the Christopher Robin having led his family in his world, having become a better man, better father, better everything. Is everything worked out wonders for Christopher Robin. That's well and befitting.
All right. And then Dragon,
How can
then
this movie get any better, Tiki?
Richard frickin' Sherman, and no, folks, not the football player.
That's so annoying to me. I hate every time I look up Richard Sherman. I keep getting the football player. I thought, who cares about the football? Give me the decades of
Dragon,
music.
This moment was flat out like, it was almost surreal to me how cool and fan servicey it was. Because it was essentially what it was like kind of like a very, very old school, like almost vintage, like penny arcade-esque, like music video for this for this thinking song that Richard Sherman's singing. And it's on the beach. It's a very like old school kind of vintage boardwalk kind of vibe to it. And but of course it's got Richard Sherman in modern times, so there's almost kind of like this man out of time sort of feel to it. You know what I mean?
He's dressed like a Dapper Dan. He's dressed like
it's kind of like a surreal. Did you get the same surreal quality that I got out of it?
There is a vaguely surreal quality, yes. I mean, there was something really interesting about it because again, there's the man with a piano on a beach while everyone's like on holiday.
That's
so it
what
does
I'm
connect.
saying. Yeah.
That's the thing, it does connect to again, I love thematically it does connect. Again, we're basically with a song, we're basically epitomizing what basically Christopher Robin's change. And I love how we made a song relevant to our plot here. Basically, it was like he grew up with the whole you get nothing from nothing. Of course, what he learned from Winnie the Pooh, what he expounded on to his daughter now is you get something from nothing. Or something, sometimes nothing leads to something. And of course, then we have the big song by Richard Sherman, Busy Doing Nothing.
And then, of course, we pan over to the to the characters lounging on the beach, the Winnie the Pooh characters.
Eeyore has the final line. Thanks for noticing. That's just great.
All right, so let's quickly get into pros and cons, Dragon. I think this will go by pretty quick.
All right, so let's start with the big con in the room here. Let's talk
Gin Rummy guy. Yeah. Oh my God, what a joke this guy was.
Thank God. I mean, Gin Rummy guy.
You know what's funny? You know how I keep hyping up Jesse Plemons in Game Night?
Yeah.
He pretty much is this character, except he's actually relevant to the movie. He's like the guy. He's like the guy who wants in on the game night that everyone's like, no, we don't want that guy involved in our game night.
I mean, Gin Rummy guy. He's just weird, and he's there for like a plot point and a gag. He's only there for 2 scenes, and those are the exact reasons he's there. He's there for like we need to get Christopher Robin into the park, so we need something to deter him, which again is a very thin reason for a plot point, by the way. And secondly, we just need him for like.
It's almost kind of like diminishes the whole like what to do of it all. Because when Christopher Robin is saying what to do, he can pretty much just be like, how can I avoid my psycho neighbor?
Exactly. I mean, it just should be like Chris Robin goes to the park to think now and again. That's what they should just hit it in. And of course, then basically we do it for them. We do it for honestly one of the generic gag within the movie, by the way, or just the like the neighbor wonders why he has to hide Winnie the Pooh. It's like that's the generic. We've seen that so many times.
Yeah,
he has to hide the bear.
Oh no, it's a cat. It's a diseased cat, so you can't pet it. Oh, did you just? I will admit the ventriloquist gag was kind of funny.
Sure, but that whole thing just felt like it wasn't the best humor in the movie for me. It was like, okay, it's just been there, done that.
Right.
The color, specifically on Tigger, could have been a little more vibrant. I know I'm not the first to say that.
Well, yeah, but then again, it's the whole look of the movie is they're supposed to be kind of like these beaten up, mangy little things. So.
Well, sure, but I mean, a lot of people just maybe again, I don't fault them. Just made the whole, he could be a little bit more orange. I mean, not even the rest of them. Just like Tigger could be more orange than brown.
You know what I think the problem is, Dragon? I think his stripes could be a little bit more defined.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think you're right. Honestly, if they just went black stripes, it would have been probably perfect. Honestly.
Like I said, there is definitely some pacing issues in the first act. Although, after the train station, then the movie just kind of takes off, so it's not that big of an issue.
See, my issue is there's a scene at the cottage. Whether you define it at the end of Act 2 or the very start of Act 3, again, depends if
we need to get into that. Yeah, I'm glad you kind of skipped over that because we have the we have the moment with Haley Atwell where she's like, "Oh, I don't know. I was thinking of she's putting it very harshly, like essentially kind of hinting at divorce, Dragon, where she's like, "Oh, maybe me and Madeline should stay here a little longer. How much longer? I don't know, Christopher." You know, like
Yeah,
and it's not terrible, but it's definitely the moment in the movie where she does become the nagging wife for a hot second.
yeah, you're right for a hot second there. But here's the thing that bugs me about it. It's less that, it's just more that whole scene in general. Because basically, Christopher Robin, he has to avoid being seen, otherwise he's going to have some splaining to do.
Right, right.
And here's the thing that bugs me about it. It just feels like it's such a redundant scene. It's the redundant reminder of, okay, so he's caught, and basically, and it just feels like we know exactly how this scene's going to go, and it just feels very much, okay, so he's caught, and he has to say, oh, hi, and again, the kid's all excited, and then he says, I gotta go. It's like, why?
Right.
The message still
Poor kid,
retains, like,
man. Like, and you could, I gotta say, this is a good kid actor.
yeah,
She might not quite be on the Jack from Hook levels of kid acting, because seriously, that kid was
my Jack.
amazing. But but she does kind of have a presence to her. And especially in this moment, man, I got to admit, like the scene itself is contrived, you're right, but when she just starts like tearing apart her room, it's effective, it's good stuff.
Oh yeah. Let's see. So again, Giles Winslow. He's a hard sell. That this guy. Here's the thing. My biggest problem with the character. I mean, look, golf gags. It's like, yeah, man, he has like a Howard Hamlin defeat that's quite funny. There, where basically he's sort of getting hot under collar, and basically Chris Rowan calls him out. You did nothing on this project, and he basically pulls out his handkerchief, and he has like, where's your proof? And of course, the golf ball flies out of his breast pocket as he it goes for like the handkerchief. That feels like
I can understand the golf ball in the breast pocket, Dragon. That's the thing. I can understand that. That's like an honest mistake. But I just don't understand why you actually bring the clubs to work.
sure. I just think it's funny. That's if we ever had to do like kind of like the way that Downey Jr.'s defeated in the Shaggy Dog. If we had to do that with Howard Hamlin, that's how we do it.
God.
Like he was golfing the whole time. Did someone cue the Perry Mason music? But yeah, I mean, seriously, my problem though with Giles is kind of bridges off that. As a character, I understand why this guy's in charge of anything. He's very obviously not good at his job, and I guess the simple answer is he's the boss's son. That's the simple answer. By the same token, I mean, he's just he's like, hey, let's cut productivity, let's fire people, let's cut 20%. Look, if you want to cut 20%, then don't you have the authority just to fire people? Why are you putting this? Why are you delegating? It's like, what are you? I don't get this guy. That's the thing. Giles he doesn't make a lot of sense. He's just like he's very much like plot 101 antagonist. Like we need a guy who's like no. Pretty much that's what Giles is.
I think you and I can agree that Kanga, Roo, Rabbit, Owl, they all could have used a little bit more to do.
At least Kanga and Roo at least got something. The rest of them were just kind of like, hey, remember how these characters kind of were?
Rabbit and Owl were just kind of like the weird odd couple who weren't really involved with the rest of the movie.
Honestly, Al specifically, I was just there because for the plot reason of we need his iconic house. He lives up there, and then basically the storm blew it over.
What do you think of Piglet, by the way? Because we haven't really brought him up yet. I honestly think Piglet might be an improvement on the original character. Because I like how he's more British.
Sure. I mean, honestly, they got two things of Piglet for me in this movie. One, I like I love the acorn bit at the very top of the movie with Piglet. That was really nice. Secondly, I love this moment where basically against Jim Cummings really selling this scene.
I know what movie you're talking about. Go ahead. I'm glad you're bringing it up.
It's something along the lines of basically when they're going to venture into Act 3 to save Christopher Robin, and Piglet, of course, has always these trepidations. Then you have this really heartwarming. Oh, it's almost like a Snoopy Woodstock moment. Where he basically like, come Piglet, let's go. He just like grabs his hand.
We need you.
Yes, it's delightful.
It's just like you need me. Yes, Piglet, of course. We always need you.
which is heartwarming. Just it's delightful, and like those moments, like sell, like yeah, that's good old Piglet there. But by the same token, we don't do hardly enough.
I honestly feel like Piglet's not as over the top of a fraidy cat as he was in the Disney stuff,
I
like in
would
the
have.
animated stuff. And that's kind of what I found refreshing about the character a little bit.
I mean, sure. Basically, if we had gotten more with him, I'd be absolutely on the
Oh,
side of it is an improvement. But I just we don't have enough to go on there. But it feels like we got enough, though. It feels like that he's an improvement. Just again, like I need more evidence for that, though.
fair enough, fair enough.
Uh, let's see. Okay, that's really again. Honestly, those are
Yeah,
again.
I think that's about
There's
it,
not enough.
honestly.
There's not enough Atwell in this picture. That's about it, really, for me.
All right,
Comments.
so pros. I very much feel like this is an auteur movie by Mark Forster. I think they Disney really let him kind of flex his creative muscles, and it very much shows. It's very much in the style of something like Finding Neverland. I think the voice acting is absolutely terrific. I think we have a great trifecta of talent from Ewan McGregor, Jim Cummings, and Brad Garrett in the movie. I think all three of them really sell it.
Absolutely.
Um, uh,
Music's good again. Music's very well chosen. Not only just the songs, but how we reprise themes again, like the da, 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 da,
mhm.
da, like all that. It's great. I love the thematic touches to the story. I think they're great. Again, it's a bold choice going basically on the whole with the thematic stuff. It's a bold choice going thematic over psychological. Because a lot of people, I think and this could be an argument someone could make, and they're not necessarily wrong. I disagree with them because of this reason. I think some people would say, why don't you just go like traditionally a lot of people would factor in again, like Christopher Robin's imagination is what brings them to life, therefore be psychological, therefore act three cannot happen.
Mhm.
But by the same token, we'll get all the great comedy of like Pooh coming to life and kind of because Pooh's a character who's alive to many people, and again they made a very direct choice there. Like, okay, we're going to have him actually be alive, and again that opened up to a lot of scrutiny. But I think it was a gamble that paid off for the movie. And it get more opportunity and then being actualized than psychological. It would have been a different film, not necessarily a worse film, but it would have been a different film. And I feel it was a bold choice going thematic over psychological. Or the psychological, it's again, maybe some people would disagree and say the thematic is the easy way to go, but I don't know. I thought it was a because we've seen psychologically, it's like people do the Fight Club thing all the time, where it's like, hey, maybe it was in his head the whole time. People go the Shyamalan way or the various different terms that can describe that move. But with this, we
I
we
like this is almost it almost feels like a storybook, which is very appropriate. The
yeah.
logic doesn't really have to make sense. It's storybook logic.
But again, I love that.
The tree is where it needs to be.
Yeah, but I love that any of that is like again it's there thematically versus just psychologically. You can't read into like what's going on in Christopher Robin's head. But you can see what's going on with him as a character before. I thought that was all really
Mhm.
ties into the arc before it ties into the mindset of the character. There's definitely a flair for the imagination again in the literal sense versus the whims. We see the imagination in the literal sense, in that it's someone imagining something we're not seeing what they're imagining, but you feel the whimsy. It's grounded yet whimsical. It's kind of that vibe that it's kind of brought to the surface here. Let's see, captures the sorry, let me rephrase it. Um, I love it with the animation on the characters. I thought the characters are brought to life in a really neat way. With the texture mapping
Oh
was
yeah,
amazing.
absolutely. I think the design of the characters, outside of the brief thing we brought up that Tigger Stripes should maybe be a little bit more pronounced.
Like a nitpick.
I think the actual design and aesthetic of the film is genius. I really do. I think it's there's some moments in this film with the character designs that are just magical, with the effects and everything.
It's very well cast. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. It's very well shot. It is well cast
Mhm.
too. We already went over that. It's so well shot. I mean, all these shots again, these Pooh and Christopher Robin shots specifically, but again, like them on the train, like we shoot them in again. These like the trains, like you can only shoot a train so many
Speaking of
times.
which, it's a very convincing period piece too,
Yeah,
with the
I'd
London
agree.
stuff.
Absolutely. I guess lastly, unless you got anything else.
No, I'm good.
It captures the charm, and again, it's a solid sequel that leads you to think, okay, we're saying something. We're saying something different with this. Like basically, it's we have not only it's not only captures the charm and nostalgia of her character while being a solid sequel. You could buy this as a continuation. And saying something like that is really saying something for Disney live action. Because I don't think we've had that with any of those live action films before, where it's like it's something that's so solid it could actually
Well,
be.
technically, Alice in Wonderland was trying to do that, but it really didn't succeed as a
But I mean, like a
movie.
successful version of that. And we kind of
Yeah,
have that here.
yeah.
I mean, if can you think of any other successful examples?
I mean, of course, Maleficent was like trying to be kind of like the in between thing, so that doesn't really count.
Maybe more of a prequel.
Kind of.
But do you see what I mean, though? It's the
Yeah,
point is
yeah,
like,
no, it's definitely unto itself when it comes to these live action remakes. I really think it's kind of diving into my final thoughts, Dragon, if you don't mind.
all right.
I really just think it's definitely just very unique. Like, it doesn't feel like it's part of this recent like Disney live action remake canon, because frankly those movies are pretty freaking mediocre. Like, I hate Beauty and the Beast, Dragon. Like, that movie is one of those movies where when I first saw it, I was I was a little underwhelmed by it, but I was like, yeah, and it is what it is. But now I'm just like, whenever I think about that movie, I'm like, oh, there are so many fundamental things wrong with that movie. That movie like shouldn't exist.
I just go
And
back to that one for the Gaston scenes about it.
sure, sure. But even the Gaston scene, I don't like the fact that LeFou has to pay off the people in the tavern to sing. It's that bothers
Oh,
me,
I
you know.
forgot about that. He does that. He pays him
Yeah,
off.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh
Right?
no.
Doesn't that just ruin the whole dynamic of that scene?
Yeah, you've just kind of clipped my wings on like the one thing I
Oh.
liked about that movie, man. Oh, you made it dirty now. Keep
Oh
going.
God. But it's okay because Josh Gad dances with a man for like 2 seconds. So diversity.
That's
Anyways.
that's weirdly out of left field political, but okay. Go on.
Anyways, like I said at the top, I feel like this is a movie that it's more for adults than it is for kids. Like, I don't even think that kids who watch it are gonna get attached to it the same way they got attached to Hook, because I just don't think it's got that sense of adventure that Hook has. But I don't say that in a bad way, Dragon. This is as I said, this is very much the most adult Disney movie since something like Saving Mr. Banks. It's I mean, of course, kids can see it and enjoy it and get something out of it for sure. But it's very much kind of its own. It's the quality of this, it's not like it's not the best movie of the year or anything. It's I would say if I were to rank, I haven't really kind of decided where I'm gonna rank this quite yet. I would say maybe it's either just in or just outside of my top 5, so it's like it's probably either my number 5 or my number 6 if I were to guess. It's definitely up there though. I wouldn't say it exceeded expectations by any means, and I knew that my expectations were so high that it probably wasn't even going to meet them. But that's not a bad thing. I still think that it's a damn good movie. It's definitely got some problems with it, but I think the highs definitely outweigh the lows. And my God, the highs with Jim Cummings and Brad Garrett and everything like that, and some of the emotional high points. And Dragon, I was not expecting to genuinely well up the second time I saw it. Like, that took me by complete surprise. So yeah, I gotta say this movie is definitely a worthwhile endeavor for sure. It's I would say out of the recent trend of Disney live action remakes, I mean, this is by far the best one, because it's like the one that actually feels like a film instead of a cash grab.
And like right now, I guess so far it's this in the lead, then Jungle Book, and then
Yeah, and Jungle Book, to be fair, I think the problem with Jungle Book is that really it's Jungle Book is the type of movie that's meant to be seen on the big screen, and so it's not really that rewatchable to me at
that's fair.
home. But this I feel like is going to be very rewatchable. But like I said, I feel like it's going to be rewatchable for that adult Disney audience, much in the same way that Saving Mr. Banks is. So that's all I got, Dragon. Why don't you round us off?
All right, so for me, my final thoughts. It's a delightful little film. It's put. Hopefully, it's put Winnie the Pooh back in the public eye in a good way, in a good light. Again, unfortunately, I think Mission Impossible is just continuing this sad
I have a
tradition of
box
Winnie
office update actually.
I okay.
Mission Impossible did take number one with 35 million, but Christopher Robin took number two with 25 million, and it kicked The Spy Who Dumped Me's ass. So thank God, Dragon. Like The Spy Who Dumped Me came in a distant third. Thank God for that. I definitely do not intend on watching that movie.
Well,
But
at least there's something.
so Mission Impossible, yeah, it did technically outperform it, but I think 25 million is something to be proud of for what essentially boils down to a small art house movie for Disney.
I'd agree that this is kind of round things. I can go kind of
Uh-huh.
circular with all this here. Yeah, I my theater experiences. There are a lot of kids in there. Again, there are a few diehard Pooh fans. People who were touched by the Winnie the Pooh. The Winnie the Pooh franchise and it's kind of the Winnie the Pooh character. But I saw a lot of young kids. Like not, I know. I think I get a sense of who this movie's for. I think they're hoping. I don't know if this film reaches the audiences they were hoping to reach all ages with this. I feel. I think it's again. I'm not saying it's a film that's it's for adults, but I think in the best case scenario, it's for adults, but also like teenagers. And that's how let me rephrase that. Not
Well, I
I,
mean, I think it's for teenagers in the
I
same way that Finding Neverland is a very rewarding movie for teenagers, in the same way that I really loved Finding Neverland as a teenager.
I mean, let me rephrase. I mean, I always go back to this Denny O'Neil quote. Denny O'Neil had this phenomenal quote about Batman. If you take a really smart 12-year-old and you show him like a smart story, a compelling story about Batman, you taught that 12-year-old something. That's kind of what I'm getting. I think that's kind of what their audience was. Like, you take like an open-minded, like preteen or teenager, and you kind of like. I think that's honestly what their a best case scenario. I think that's who this audience would reach, along with the adults who have the nostalgia for Winnie the Pooh and stuff. So it's at the end of the day, I feel that there are a lot of kids running up and down the aisles. I mean, again, it didn't kill the movie or anything for them, but I just felt like yes, it wasn't for them. I kind of knew that going into this, that was going to be kind of in the saving Mr. Banks kind of
Mhm.
mindset and not knowing 100% what I was going to get with this, but just kind of knowing generally what I was going to get. And that said, recaptured a really charming character. It met my expectations. Could it be rounded off here and there in places? Sure. What movie couldn't? But it was exactly as promised, and it was absolutely a treat, and it was delightful. In the grand scheme of things, I still say Mr. Banks over this, but I mean it's so somewhere in that vein. Again it's a biopic versus something like this is just kind of a live action Disney film, but again very impressive. So it was a treat and definitely worth rewatching. And again, I'd recommend anybody who's just really polite and just like, oh, I wonder what they're going to say about the movie. Thanks for watching this without seeing the movie, but still, seriously, see the movie. Okay.
All right, thanks so much for watching, folks. I believe the next big Disney movie we have coming up, correct me if I'm wrong, Dragon, but wouldn't it be Mary Poppins in December, or is there anything big coming up before then? I mean, we have that weird Nutcracker movie coming out, but we probably won't be covering that.
Yeah, and look, in all honesty, I'm probably not going to be doing the Mary Poppins thing, but
How dare you?
right. So anyway, let's see. So, I mean, technically, there's the Sony. Well, again, it's less. It's not really any Disney correlation, but it's in the sense of Marvel. So it's
Yeah, I guess we got the Venom movie and we got the Into the Spider-Verse movie. So
like Into
there's
the
that.
Spider Verse more accurate. Oh wait, no.
Yeah.
Oh my God, no. We have another. We have Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh, of course. Duh.
Hey,
Yeah,
distracting
yeah.
me with Mary Poppins and everything. Yeah.
Mary
Wreck-It Ralph.
Poppins.
So yes, Wreck-It Ralph will be back next time. More accurately, Wreck-It Ralph. I think if you want to be all semantical, a couple Marvel films that are really not inside the Disney purview, but
Right. All right.
we'll talk about Venom even if nobody else wants to.
I'm genuinely kind of excited for Venom
I'm
because
hopeful for Venom. I'm hopeful
because it can't be any worse than Spider-Man 3, right? Like that's my optimistic attitude going in. Even if it's a mess of a movie, the portrayal of Venom himself can't be any worse than Spider-Man 3.
Well, unless he dances.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, folks, and don't forget, the world may need They're Christopher, but I need my Christopher Robin.
Oh, bother.